the great swordsman of Marvel. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 626: The Culprit. Kiki felt incredibly happy. She had a loving husband who treated her very well, and they now had a child. Perhaps it was the moment she gave birth that Kiki realized she was a mother, no longer a child, and suddenly became mature and composed. Kiki whispered to Yi-Shen, "Bring the baby over so I can see him." Yi-Shen heard Kiki's voice and knew she was awake, so he quickly put the baby down in front of her so she could see him clearly. After setting the baby down, Yi-Shen carefully helped Kiki sit up. Kiki propped herself up and carefully looked at the baby still in swaddling clothes, gently touching the little one's face. The little one immediately shut his mouth and stopped crying. Yi-Shen, seeing how clever the little one was, said to him with dissatisfaction, "What? Your mother comforts you when you stop crying, but when I comfort you, you cry even harder. How can you be so biased?" Ever since Kiki became pregnant, Yi-Shen had been extremely tense and on edge. Only after the baby was finally born did Yi-Shen relax a lot. Today, Yi-Shen was in a great mood, even jealous of the baby. Kiki found it particularly amusing and said to Yi-Shen, "Why are you still arguing with the baby? Look how beautiful the baby is, and how smart he is. We really have a treasure." Yi-Shen was jealous again and said angrily to Kiki, "What treasure? My treasure is only you." Kiki smiled gently and said happily to Yi-Shen, "Yes, you are both my treasures." Yi-Shen was like a big child at this moment. Now, the three of them were happily staying in the hospital room. This moment was particularly warm and happy, and no one bothered them. The three of them were enjoying this sweet time. Yi-Shen seemed to suddenly remember something and said to Kiki, "Wife, you should name this child. I don't know what to name him. I think it would be more meaningful for you to choose the name." Kiki held the child in her arms and looked closely. She noticed that the child looked like a miniature version of Yi-Shen, with a personality and temperament very similar to Yi-Shen, but the child's features looked very much like her own. However, Kiki couldn't think of a good name yet, so she said to Yi-Shen with a troubled expression. Soon after, some people came to the ward. Someone knocked on the door, and Yi-Shen opened it to find that it was Niu Maoang and his family. Niu Maoang, as the child's maternal grandfather, had come to visit the child in person. Niu Maoang carried large bags of things in his hands, including various toys, snacks, and supplements. Niu Maoang's loud voice suddenly rang out, "Oh, my good grandson. Let Grandpa see him." After saying that, Niu Maoang put down the things he was carrying, picked up the child, and rocked and soothed him. Perhaps it was because the child was particularly perceptive, but seeing the bold Demon King's imposing figure and the many fine things he brought, he immediately fawned over him, grinning broadly. Yi-Shen, seeing his son's obsequious expression, felt ashamed. Little Yi-Shen quickly amused the bold Demon King, who burst into laughter. "Oh my, you two have finally had this child. Look how well you've raised him, so smart and handsome. I'm a grandfather now, and I'll take care of him. I love children. You two can enjoy your time together." Hearing this, Yi-Shen was overjoyed. He certainly didn't want the little one to disturb his sweet time with his wife. So, Yi-Shen said to the bold Demon King, "Father-in-law, it's wonderful that you like children. We'd love to leave the child with you. He can be your source of joy." As someone with experience, the bold Demon King naturally understood what Yi-Shen was thinking and what mischief he was plotting. So he said to Yi-Shen, "I understand. You two are young, you've only been married a short time, and now you have a child. You haven't even had much time for yourselves as a couple, and now you have a little burden. I can help you take care of the child for the next few years, but after a few years, when the child grows up, you absolutely cannot be absent from his growth." The bold Demon King was particularly understanding, and Yi-Shen was very happy that his father-in-law was so considerate. He smiled and said to the bold Demon King, "Father-in-law is so kind. Thank you for your consideration. Don't worry, we will not be absent from the child's growth for a single moment, and we will give him every bit of love he deserves." At this moment, the bold Demon King suddenly remembered a question and asked Kiki, "My dear daughter, Have you chosen a name for the child yet? Kiki weakly shook her head and said, not yet. I just don't know what name to choose. Perhaps father, you could think of something. After listening to his daughter, Kta's words, the bull demon king held the child, looked at his face, and thought for a moment before saying, look, this child has a round face. He'll definitely be a chubby little guy. A chubby little guy will probably eat a lot. How about we name him Yifanfen, hoping he'll eat well and not be a picky eater. Yi-Shen thought about it for a moment and felt the name seemed a bit inappropriate. Yi-Shen didn't quite agree with the name. However, what Yi-Shen didn't expect was that the Bull Demon King and Kiki had the same thought process. After all, they were father and daughter, and Kiki's idea was almost the same as the Bull Demon King's. The two of them hit it off immediately. Kiki then added, I think the name Yifanfen sounds nice, and the meaning is also very good. I think this name is good, not bad. What do you think, honey? Kiki asked Yi-Shen's opinion, but seeing that Kiki and the Bull Demon King were very satisfied with the name, Yi-Shen didn't want to object. Anyway, they could just pick a name for the child and change it later. So Yi-Shen said to Kiki, choosing a name was entirely up to my wife. If she liked it, that was fine, I had no objections. But for some reason, the child started throwing a tantrum as soon as he heard he had the name Yifanfen. Perhaps he himself thought the name didn't sound good. But the child couldn't change that fact, so his name became Yifanfen, and that name stayed with him from then on. The Bull Demon King saw the child crying again and tried to soothe him, but this time, the child wouldn't listen to him, because he was the culprit behind the name. Chapter 627 Whereabouts. Yi-Shen found the scene both hilarious and comical. Seeing the Bull Demon King trying so hard to amuse the child, despite his advanced age, imposing physique, and fierce-looking face, he was surprisingly adept at soothing the child. However, at that moment, Yi-Shen's eyes were only on his weak wife lying in the hospital bed. Seeing Kiki, he went to her side, took her hand tightly in his palm, and pressed it against his face, his eyes fixed on her. Since naming their child Yifanfen, Yi-Shen and Kiki's lives had revolved around their child. They didn't want to miss out on their child's growth. They decided to accompany him from a young age, witnessing every moment of his development. As parents, Yi-Shen and Kiki were exceptionally good. Their days revolved almost entirely around their child. In the blink of an eye, the child grew up, from walking, then talking, until finally running, jumping, crying, and laughing. Throughout their child's growth, Yi-Shen and Kiki personally witnessed every step of the process. They were overjoyed to see their child constantly changing and learning new skills every now and then. This was the pride of being parents. However, this process wasn't always joyful. There were also times of distress, especially since Yifanfen was particularly mischievous and disobedient, causing Kiki many headaches. Until Yifanfen grew to a few years old, Yi-Shen's daily life consisted almost entirely of practicing martial arts, chopping wood in the mountains, and returning home. Kiki's daily life was also very monotonous, washing clothes, cooking, sweeping, doing housework, and taking Yifanfen to school. One day, several years later, Yi-Shen went up a mountain to chop wood early in the morning, leaving Kiki at home to prepare lunch for Yi-Shen and Yifanfen. Kiki quickly prepared lunch and waited for the father and son to return. However, lunchtime arrived, and neither of them had returned. Kiki was very worried, so she left home to look for Yifanfen. She knew Yifanfen was very mischievous and playful, and guessed that Yifanfen had been playing somewhere and had forgotten the time, forgetting to come back for lunch. Kiki searched the neighborhood for a while, but couldn't find Yifanfen. As she walked, Kiki shouted Yifanfen's name loudly, but no one answered. Kiki panicked. She had never encountered such a situation before. Every time she called Yifanfen's name, Yifanfen would answer, but today was different. Kiki became more and more worried, afraid that Yifanfen had encountered some danger. However, Kiki couldn't go searching alone, since she didn't know where Yifanfen had gone or where to look for her. So she continued searching aimlessly around the neighborhood. Kiki searched almost the entire ditch and the small woods near the house, but found no trace of Yifanfen. After searching for a long time without finding Yifanfen, Kiki, as a mother, was extremely anxious. The more she searched, the more anxious she became, and she even started to cry. Yi-Shen was still cutting down trees on the mountain and hadn't returned, leaving Kiki with no one to help. Kiki returned home helplessly. Normally, Yifanfen would have already been home and eaten by now, the time Kiki would be taking him to Wushan's class. Today, not only had Yi Fanfen missed class, but he was nowhere to be found. Kiki sat alone at home, feeling anxious and restless, hugging her knees as she sat on the bed. Exhausted from searching for Yi Fanfen for so long, and overwhelmed with anxiety, Kiki cried herself to sleep. At that moment, Yi Shen finally returned. He thought that since he was a little late, his wife would be waiting for him to eat together. However, when he arrived home, he found the food on the table, untouched and uneaten. He was very puzzled. Seeing this, Yi Shen knew something bad must have happened, so he shouted loudly from inside the house. "Wife, wife, wife, where are you?" Yi Shen called out several times from inside the house, but there was no response. Yi Shen panicked and rushed into the room to look for Kiki. He found Kiki asleep in bed. Yi Shen initially thought it was nothing serious and gently shook Kiki's body, preparing to wake her for lunch. "Wife? Wife? Time to get up and eat." Kiki was startled awake. She opened her eyes and saw Yi Shen had returned. She quickly grabbed Yi Shen's hand and said frantically, "Honey, the child is missing. I just searched the neighborhood, but I couldn't find him. I don't know where he went. I'm so worried. Please go and find him quickly. I'm afraid he's encountered some danger. He's so young, what if something happens to him?" Upon hearing Kiki's words, Yi Shen immediately became agitated. "What? The child is missing? When did you discover he was missing?" Kiki asked Yi Shen guiltily. "At noon, I was cooking at home. After finishing the meal, I was about to call Yi Fanfen back for lunch, but I couldn't find him. So I looked everywhere for him, but I still couldn't find him." Kiki became increasingly aggrieved, feeling as if she had committed some terrible mistake. But Yi Shen kept patting Kiki's shoulder, comforting her. It's okay, don't think so much. The child is just playing around, maybe he ran off somewhere and can't find his way home. Don't worry unnecessarily. I'll go out and look for him now, and I'll definitely bring him back. Don't worry." Hearing Yi Shen say this, Kiki finally felt relieved. She knew Yi Shen's abilities, he almost always kept his word. After comforting Kiki and waiting for her to calm down, Yi Shen quickly went out to search for the child. Yi Shen went out anxiously to find Yi Fanfen. During his journey, he passed by a farm and saw someone working there. At this point, Yi Shen would approach anyone he saw and ask about Yi Fanfen's whereabouts. He desperately hoped that someone had seen his child so that he could use the information he gathered to find her. Chapter 628 Giving Up. Yi Shen approached the man working on the farm and asked, "Uncle, have you seen a child around 6 years old around here?" The man put down what he was doing, paused his work, thought for a moment, and then replied, "Young man, I haven't seen anything like the child you're talking about, a child around 6 years old." Hearing this, Yi Shen was very disappointed. He was even more anxious now, because he had already searched a long way, far from home. How could Yi Fanfen have run so far? Had she encountered some danger? The more Yi Shen thought about it, the more worried and anxious he became. He dared not think about these things anymore. But the man remembered something else and said to Yi Shen, "Young man, I didn't see any child, but I saw something very strange. This morning, when I went out to work, I saw a UFO in the sky." Upon hearing the word flying saucer, Yi Shen became particularly sensitive, as he knew what it meant. He then asked the older man, "Uncle, is there a special symbol or marking on this flying saucer?" The older man thought carefully for a moment before replying to Yi Shen. "It seems so, but the UFO was quite far away from me at the time, so I couldn't see it very clearly. I only vaguely saw a blurry mark on the UFO, and the mark looked a bit strange." Yi Shen suddenly understood. He roughly knew what was going on. He knew the origin of the UFO. Yi Shen immediately guessed that the UFO must belong to people from his original planet who had come to Earth. Because that symbol was a unique symbol used on UFOs on their planet. Yi Shen had been away from his planet for so long, and his family must have been worried, so they sent people to Earth to look for him. Yi Shen guessed that the person who came to look for him must be his brother, Raditz. Although the facts were indeed as Yi Shen guessed, he didn't have time to deal with that matter now, because his most important task was to find his child, Yi Fanfen. The more Yi Shen thought about his mischievous child, the more his head ached. He still didn't know where to start looking for Yi Fanfen. On Yi Fanfen's side, 6-year-old Yi Fanfen found himself lost in a large forest. He remembered chasing a beautiful butterfly, entering the forest with the sole aim of catching it. However, His pursuit led him deeper into the forest, where he couldn't find his way back. Being so young, Yi Fanfen didn't understand the consequences of getting lost in the forest. Initially, he was very curious about this unfamiliar place, finding everything fascinating. But gradually, realizing he was alone and the forest was dark in some places, he began to panic. Young Yi Fanfen couldn't face this alone, so he started crying in the forest. His loud cries attracted many small animals. First, a flock of butterflies came to him and began to swarm around him. The butterflies were incredibly beautiful, their colors exceptionally vibrant. As if touched by Yanxi's words, Yi Fanfen's mood instantly brightened, and he stopped crying. He chased after the butterflies, playing games with them, completely forgetting his troubles about being lost. But the butterflies wouldn't stay with Yi Fanfen forever. Even small animals have their own tasks. After spending some time with him, the butterflies gradually flew away, heading off to their work. Yi Fanfen couldn't keep up with the butterflies. After a while, he drifted further and further away. He quickly gave up, sitting down and crying again. Yi Fanfen's cries soon attracted other animals, but this time, unlike the gentle butterflies, his cries attracted a tiger. The tiger suddenly pounced from the bushes, startling Yi Fanfen. He was terrified and immediately stopped crying. Yi Fanfen stared wide-eyed at the large tiger, its teeth bared and mouth agape, ready to devour him. Yi Fanfen finally felt fear, but he dared not run. How could a mere 6-year-old child possibly fight a tiger? So, Yi Fanfen quickly ran into the bushes, found a hole left by some unknown animal, and crawled inside. The hole was just the right size for him, but despite his efforts to curl up and squeeze deeper, his body still peeked out. Yi Fanfen was terrified. He dared not cry, but his body trembled uncontrollably. Even as he hid in the hole, the tiger approached. Fortunately, Yi Fanfen was clever enough. Before diving into the hole, he had clutched 2 very sturdy sticks. Even if the tiger reached him and tried to pull him out, he would still have weapons to protect himself. The tiger, its mouth wide open, approached Yi Fanfen, its jaws hovering above his head. In this critical moment, Yi Fanfen remembered some skills he had learned from Master Wu Shen. Although these skills weren't yet fully mastered, they could enhance his strength. So, while reciting the incantation his master had taught him, Yi Fanfen swung his wooden stick and struck the tiger's head hard. The incantation worked, instantly increasing Yi Fanfen's strength. When the stick struck the tiger's head, the tiger cried out in pain and ran away. But Yi Fanfen couldn't afford to be careless, because the tiger certainly wouldn't give up easily. Having finally found prey, it wouldn't abandon it. Yi Fanfen dared not climb out of the pit. He had no choice but to remain inside. Sure enough, after a while, the tiger returned once more. Chapter 629 Pine Tree. This time, the tiger returned even more ferociously than before. It seemed determined to devour Yi Fanfen. Yi Fanfen was so terrified that he could only hide inside the cave, not daring to peek out. Yi Fanfen dared not drop the stick he was holding, and he even gathered all the branches around the cave entrance to cover it, making it harder for the tiger to carry him away. The tiger remained by Yi Fanfen's side, refusing to leave. It was a battle of attrition, a test of endurance. Yi Fanfen felt his stomach growling. He hadn't eaten lunch yet, and it was already quite late. The tiger was also starving, constantly roaring, a terrifying sound that terrified Yi Fanfen, forcing him to stay alert. The tiger was also very hungry. It prepared for one last attack on Yi Fanfen. This time, the tiger pounced directly on Yi Fanfen's head. The tiger pawed at the branches, trying to move them aside and then pick Yi Fanfen up. Yi Fanfen's attempts to scare the tiger away with the branches were useless this time, as the tiger was now determined to eat her. The tiger quickly moved the branches away. At this moment, the tiger opened its mouth wide and reached into the hole. The tiger bit Yi Fanfen's hat. Thinking it had bitten Yi Fanfen, the tiger ran back forcefully, trying to pull Yi Fanfen out of the hole. However, the tiger had only bitten Yi Fanfen's hat. Enraged, it threw the hat aside. But the hat was very important to Yi Fanfen. Not wanting the tiger to take his hat, Yi Fanfen quickly climbed out of the hole. Now, Yi Fanfen was no longer afraid of the tiger, determined to get his hat back. Perhaps Yi Fanfen didn't realize that he had such courage, that he dared to face such a large tiger alone in such a critical moment. Yi Fanfen probably didn't realize that he was only a 6-year-old child, and facing such a large tiger alone was incredibly dangerous. But that hat held immense significance for Yi Fanfen, It was a hat his mother had knitted for him for his birthday last year. Yi Fanfan treasured this hat like a precious gem. Although it wasn't a particularly expensive gift, it was something his mother had painstakingly made, stitch by stitch. All of his mother's love was contained in it, so Yi Fanfan didn't want to lose it. He was determined to bring it back. Yi Fanfan didn't know where he got the strength from. Suddenly, it was as if he had divine assistance. Yi Fanfan swung the wooden stick with all his might, and the long stick slowly approached the tiger. Yi Fanfan struck the tiger's eye with the stick, and the tiger, in pain, fled in panic. But even in its escape, the tiger hadn't forgotten to snatch Yi Fanfan's hat. Seeing this, Yi Fanfan panicked and, without thinking, started running after the tiger. He was running to retrieve his hat, unaware of the danger he was doing. Yi Fanfan chased the tiger with all his might, but instead of catching it, he accidentally fell off a cliff. As he fell, he quickly grabbed something nearby and clung to a protruding tree trunk, landing on the edge of the cliff. Luckily, there was a tree trunk directly below where he had fallen, allowing him to hang on and avoid further descent. Below him lay a bottomless abyss. Yi Fanfan was terrified, breaking out in a cold sweat. His foot accidentally struck a rock on the cliff face. Then the stone fell, and for a long time, there was no echo. Today's ordeal was truly terrible. Yi Fanfan, a little boy, had experienced so much danger, he was completely broken. He was now hanging from a tree, his hands and feet tightly gripping a branch of moderate size. Yi Fanfan wouldn't let go, he could only desperately cling to the tree and try to climb up. But he didn't have enough strength, he was very hungry, so he knew he couldn't climb up on his own. Just then, Yi-Shen, searching for his son, had found the vicinity of where Yi Fanfan was. Yi-Shen had been calling his son's name all along the way, but no one answered. Yi-Shen grew increasingly anxious, he was walking further and further away, worried that something might have happened to his son. So he kept shouting his son's name loudly, even though his mouth was extremely dry and he desperately wanted water. Yi-Shen almost shouted himself hoarse, but he still kept calling his son's name with all his might. Yi-Shen was extremely worried about Yi Fanfan. His mind raced with terrible scenarios, those unpleasant thoughts replaying in his head, tormenting him. Yi-Shen desperately didn't want anything to happen to his son. If something were to happen, how would he get the news back and tell his wife? He knew without a doubt that if Kiki knew Yi Fanfan was in trouble, the news would be an unimaginable blow to her. But based on the current situation, Yi-Shen felt that Yi Fanfan was very likely already in danger, and his chances of survival were slim. The more Yi-Shen thought about it, the more frightened he became, and he started to panic. Yi-Shen kept calling Yi Fanfan's name loudly. Nearby, Yi Fanfan seemed to faintly hear his father's voice. His father was still calling his name. Yi Fanfan wanted to answer, but he was too weak. He only had enough strength to hold on to the crooked pine tree. Yi Fanfan could barely make a sound, and even when she did, it was so faint that Yi-Shen couldn't hear her. The father and son were nearby, not far apart, yet due to various circumstances, they couldn't spot each other in time. Yi-Shen was still desperately searching for Yi Fanfan. Although he was exhausted, hungry, and completely drained, he forced himself to continue searching, relying entirely on his willpower. Yi-Shen's eyes constantly scanned his surroundings, and suddenly he noticed something strange. Chapter 630 Support. Yi-Shen was astonished to find his son's hat walking among the bushes. Here's what happened. Yi-Shen discovered that 693 Yi Fanfan's hat was walking among the bushes. Yi-Shen found this very strange. Could that be Yi Fanfan? Having found his son's hat, Yi-Shen was overjoyed. This was a crucial clue. He quickly ran over and came to the bushes, only to discover that it wasn't his son. It turned out that the person wearing the hat was a tiger. The tiger had snatched Yi Fanfan's hat and put it on its own head before roaming the forest. As soon as Yi-Shen saw the tiger, he knew something terrible had happened. The tiger was wearing his son's hat. He couldn't mistake it for anything else, because this hat was unique in the world, knitted for Yi Fanfan by his mother. Therefore, Yi-Shen couldn't possibly be wrong. But why is this hat on the tiger's head? Could it be that this tiger encountered Yi Fanfan? If so, where's Yi Fanfan now? Yi-Shen carefully examined the tiger's body and found no bloodstains, nor any food scraps in its mouth. Yi-Shen could only pray fervently. He hoped his son hadn't been eaten by this tiger. Otherwise, Yi-Shen would definitely kill the tiger. But killing the tiger wouldn't undo anything. It wouldn't be enough to vent his anger. Yi-Shen tried to communicate with the tiger using animal language. He let out a low growl and asked the tiger, "Why do you have my son's hat? Tell me what happened." The tiger heard Yi-Shen communicating with him in their animal language, and the tiger was terrified. Who is this person? This was too powerful to know their animal language. The tiger could tell from Yi-Shen's eyes that Yi-Shen was someone he couldn't afford to offend. This person was far too powerful. The tiger dared not provoke him, so he dropped Yi-Fan's hat and turned to run. The tiger ran as fast as he could because he knew this person was the father of the little boy from before. If Yi-Shen found out that he had bullied his son, he would surely tear him to pieces, leaving not even a bone fragment. The tiger ran very fast. He remembered that the little boy had accidentally fallen off a cliff while chasing him. The tiger knew that the cliff was a bottomless abyss. Once someone fell in, there was absolutely no chance of survival. Now, this little boy had almost indirectly caused his death. The tiger was very afraid that Yi-Shen would cause him trouble. Yi-Shen saw the tiger running away desperately but did not chase after him. Even if he caught the tiger now, it wouldn't make much difference. Yi-Shen continued walking forward, and saw a gaping canyon ahead. Directly in front of him was the cliff, still some distance from the edge. Yi-Fan was still clinging to a small tree. This protruding branch was from a previous sapling that had withered and died due to the scarcity of rain near the cliff and a subsequent drought. Now only a bare trunk remained. Yi-Fan was a little overweight, and the trunk was no longer enough to support his weight. Yi-Fan felt the withered branch swaying constantly, and the shaking caused rocks to fall from the cliff edge. The branch made a snapping sound, and Yi-Fan was terrified. He knew this single tree wouldn't protect him. He was afraid he would fall. The bottom was too terrifying. What would happen if he fell? Would he die? Yi-Fan didn't dare to think about it. He closed his eyes in terror, now left to fate. If the branch broke, he, along with the stone and the broken branch, would fall to the unknown below. Finally, the dry branch snapped. During his fall, Yi-Fan clung tightly to the branch with his hands and feet. It was because of this that he survived the fall. It turned out there was a river below the cliff, a very deep and swift-flowing river. During the fall, Yi-Fan, who couldn't swim, was fortunate to be holding on to a tree branch, preventing him from sinking. This branch saved his life twice. If Yi-Shen had walked a little faster and reached the cliff edge a few minutes earlier, he might have seen Yi-Fan hanging on the branch, perhaps even before he fell and rescued him. Yi-Shen and Yi-Fan, father and son, just missed each other. Shortly after Yi-Fan fell, Yi-Shen arrived at the cliff edge, but didn't see him and became very anxious. However, he noticed a broken branch and guessed that it was likely caused by Yi-Fan. Since Yi-Fan was nearby, Yi-Shen deduced that this must be the place he had been before. It seemed this method of searching wouldn't work. Yi-Shen decided to try a different approach. Yi-Shen summoned his somersault cloud, intending to fly into the air. Only from a higher vantage point could he see further, Yi-Shen reasoned. However, it seemed too late for him to realize this now. If he had thought of this method sooner, Yi-Fan wouldn't have fallen off the cliff. After falling into the river, Yi-Fan desperately clung to a piece of wood floating on the surface. Fortunately, he held on tightly, daring not to let go. He was carried downstream by the current. The river water at the bottom of the canyon was quite cold, and Yi-Fan shivered upon touching it. At such a young age, Yi-Fan couldn't withstand the cold. His body was already weak, and now, falling into such icy water, he was on the verge of collapse. Yi-Fan was holding on entirely through sheer willpower. As Yi-Shen flew high into the air using his somersault cloud, he kept calling out Yi-Fan's name. Just as Yi-Shen was desperately calling Yi-Fan's name, Yi-Fan, who was currently floating on the river surface, grew increasingly frightened and burst into tears, loudly calling out for his father. Yi-Shen and Yi-Fan, father and son, called out to each other, and at the moment their voices met, they finally realized each other's presence. Chapter 631 Traces. Yi-Shen heard Yi-Fan's cries for help, and Yi-Fan also heard Yi-Shen calling her name. Yi-Fan realized the voice was coming from the sky. She strained to look up and saw someone flying on a somersault cloud. She knew it was her father's somersault cloud. Her father had come to find her. Upon seeing Yi-Shen, Yi-Fan cried even louder. Yi-Shen heard the voice coming from below and lowered his altitude, his gaze fixed on the river surface. He searched diligently for Yi-Fan's whereabouts. Finally, he spotted a small dot on the river, Yi-Fan's tiny body. She was clinging to a log, drifting downstream. Yi Shen was terrified. This child couldn't swim. What if she fell in? The more he thought about it, the more frightened he became. He quickly swooped down to pull Yi Fanfen out of the river. Even with his incredible speed, Yi Shen couldn't make it in time. The moment he saw Yi Fanfen, she was swept to the cave entrance by the current. Because the entrance was narrow, the log supporting her got stuck. Without the log's support, Yi Fanfen could only struggle desperately in the water. Seeing this, Yi Shen was frantic. He couldn't worry about anything else and immediately swooped down as fast as he could, intending to wait for Yi Fanfen at the end of the cave entrance and rescue her. Looking into the distance, Yi Shen saw a waterfall at the cave entrance, a very high and swiftly flowing waterfall. If Yi Fanfen were swept under the waterfall, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yi Shen didn't dare think about it. He flew to the top of the waterfall as fast as he could, waiting for Yi Fanfen to emerge from the cave entrance, but he was still too late. Because the water flow was faster than Yi Shen had anticipated, he hadn't reached the cave entrance in time when Yi Fanfen fell into the waterfall. By the time he arrived, Yi Fanfen had vanished, apparently having fallen below the waterfall. Yi Shen was filled with remorse and self-blame. Why hadn't he been faster? Why hadn't he noticed for a few more seconds? It was all over in those few seconds. Zhao, Yi Shen was filled with regret. But what was done, and Yi Shen couldn't change anything. He could only accept reality. Yi Shen was now even more heartbroken than when he first discovered Yi Fanfen's disappearance, because he had watched helplessly as Yi Fanfen fell from above the cave entrance into the waterfall. This had happened right before his eyes. He had seen Yi Fanfen disappear into the waterfall, and Yi Shen was extremely worried. When Yi Shen discovered that Yi Fanfen had fallen below the waterfall, he rushed to the bottom, hoping to find him in the pool below. Although it was late, finding him meant a chance of rescue. Yi Shen refused to give up searching, even though Yi Fanfen was now almost certainly dead. He was determined to find his son's body and bring it back. He went to the large pool below the waterfall, where the rushing water created huge splashes and a deafening roar. Yi Shen kept calling out Yi Fanfen's name, unwilling to give up. He had witnessed his son disappear before his eyes, a devastating blow. However, after searching the pool, he couldn't find Yi Fanfen. His worry grew, and he became afraid, unable to face the thought of his son's impending death. Yi Shen refused to give up. After searching one lap without finding Yi Fanfen, he decided to continue searching a second lap. However, he was again met with disappointment. He searched a large area around the pond, but still couldn't find Yi Fanfen. Yi Shen was bewildered, and this outcome made him increasingly heartbroken. Just when Yi Shen was feeling particularly sad and didn't know what to do, he seemed to hear a sound from the sky, like a child's voice. The previously dejected Yi Shen suddenly came to life after hearing the child's voice. He strained to look up and saw something that greatly excited him. Following the sound of the child's cry, Yi Shen discovered a child hanging from a pine tree growing on a cliff above the wet ground. Yi Shen looked closely and realized that the child was his own son, Yi Fanfen. Overjoyed, Yi Shen rallied his spirits and transformed into a somersault cloud, ascending upwards. At this moment, Yi Fanfen was hanging from a pine tree, loudly calling out his parents' names. Yi Fanfen was crying especially loudly because, for this 6-year-old child, he had experienced so much today. His usually strong personality had softened at this moment, because just a few minutes earlier, something unforgettable had happened. Yi Fanfen knew very well that he had almost died several times today. Now, Yi Fanfen finally saw his father, Yi Shen, coming to find him, and only then did Yi Fanfen feel a little relieved. Yi Shen rode his somersault cloud into the sky and came to the pine tree where Yi Fanfen was hanging. Yi Shen reached out and took Yi Fanfen down from the branch. The moment Yi Shen embraced Yi Fanfen clung to his father's neck, refusing to let go. He finally felt safe, but he was also terrified. He clung desperately to his father's neck, refusing to let go even in death. As Yi Fanfen hugged Yi Shen, he desperately called out to him. "Daddy, Daddy, why did it take you so long? I was so scared." Wah! Yi Fanfen burst into tears. Yi Shen knew his son had suffered that day, so he gently and patiently comforted him. Don't cry, Daddy's here. It's all right now, my baby is safe, everything will be alright." Although Yi Shen was comforting Yi Fanfen, he knew deep down that if it weren't for Yi Fanfen's good fortune, he wouldn't have had the chance to see him alive again. Yi Shen was also deeply frightened. Since becoming a father, He had been particularly reluctant to face such things. He didn't want anything like this to happen again. He vowed from the bottom of his heart that he would take better care of Yi Fanfan and prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. Chapter 632 Power. Although Yi Xian was constantly comforting Yi Fanfan was still very scared and cried in front of him. Yi Xian was very tolerant of Yi Fanfan's crying, because he understood that after experiencing so many dangers, Yi Fanfan needed someone to vent his emotions. Yi Xian was now Yi Fanfan's support. He was a very powerful figure, and Yi Fanfan always looked up to his father as a role model. Seeing his son still crying, Yi Xian continued to comfort him, saying, "My dear son, let's not cry anymore. We're safe now. Daddy will take you home." With Yi Xian's constant comforting, Yi Fanfan finally calmed down. Although he stopped crying, he was still sobbing because he had cried so hard. As a boy, Yi Fanfan usually didn't act spoiled in front of his parents, but today he unexpectedly acted spoiled towards Yi Xian. Daddy, I want to go play at Master Roshi's place today, can I go?" Yi Xian immediately agreed and said to Yi Fanfan. "Okay, since son wants to play at Master Roshi's place, then Daddy will take you to Master Roshi's house, okay?" Yi Fanfan said excitedly. Okay, then Daddy, let's go quickly." After saying that, Yi Xian summoned the flying nimbus again, picked up his son Yi Fanfan and put him on the flying nimbus, then rode away from there, heading towards Master Roshi's house. On the way to Master Roshi's house, there was something that Yi Xian couldn't figure out. During the process of saving Yi Fanfan, something seemed particularly strange to Yi Fanfan, and he wondered how it was accomplished. Yi Xian remembered that Yi Fanfan was clearly swept down the waterfall by the current, and logically, Yi Fanfan should have appeared in the pond below the waterfall. However, Yi Xian searched several times but couldn't find her. Finally, he discovered that Yi Fanfan was hanging on a pine tree above the waterfall. This was something Yi Xian found particularly strange, as it defied all logic. He couldn't understand what was going on and decided to go to Master Roshi's house. Yi Xian was extremely curious about Yi Fanfan's relocation, but he couldn't find an answer. He had no choice but to ask Master Roshi for an answer. Yi Xian, carrying Yi Fanfan, headed towards Master Roshi's house, and they were almost there. Just then, Yi Xian's brother appeared. His brother, named Raz, had come specifically for Yi Xian, who had been missing for a long time. He had arrived on this planet in a flying saucer and was still using it to search for Yi Xian from the air. Unfortunately, Yi Xian and his brother were traveling in almost opposite directions, making it impossible for them to find each other quickly. During his search for Yi Fanfan, Yi Xian discovered that someone knew his brother had come to this planet. However, Yi Xian didn't think much of it, assuming his brother wouldn't find him anytime soon. While Yi Xian's brother, Raditz, was searching for him, he encountered a young Piccolo. Why would Yi Xian's brother meet a young Piccolo? Wasn't Piccolo Daimyo killed by Yi Xian a long time ago? How could he reappear? It turns out that Yi Xian's brother used time travel to time long ago. Therefore, he had the opportunity to meet a young Piccolo. The scene of their encounter was particularly dramatic. When they met, something happened. Yi Xian's brother was flying very low in his flying saucer, hoping to see the ground more clearly. But coincidentally, at that moment, Piccolo Daimyo was learning archery. Piccolo Daimyo's technique was excellent from the start, and while shooting an arrow into the sky, he accidentally shot at Yi Xian's flying saucer that was passing by. Yi Xian's brother was furious because he had only arrived on this planet in this one flying saucer. If anything happened to it, he might not be able to return. Therefore, Yi Xian's brother was extremely angry and wanted to settle scores with the archer. He found the young Piccolo Daimyo and verbally abused him. However, the young Piccolo Daimyo was very hot-blooded and arrogant, and he couldn't tolerate being insulted like that. So, Piccolo Daimyo's temper flared up. Yi Xian's brother cursed Piccolo Daimyo like this: "Who's blind enough to shoot arrows randomly? If your archery skills are bad, don't come out and embarrass yourself." Piccolo Daimyo couldn't stand being criticized, so he retorted in a fiery temper, "And who are you, you blind fool, daring to talk about me like that? Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to talk to me like that?" Neither Yi Xian's brother nor Piccolo Daimyo would back down, and a heated exchange ensued. After a verbal altercation, the two men quickly settled their differences and were on the verge of a full-blown fight. Neither of them was willing to back down, and a brawl was imminent. Both men, hot-tempered and unable to tolerate each other's provocations, immediately began fighting. The younger Piccolo struck first, attacking Raditz, who retaliated with fluid and brilliant counterattacks. Midway through their fight, before a clear victor could be determined, Raditz sensed the greatest power on the planet. This mysterious power resonated strongly with Raditz. His intuition told him it belonged to Yi-Shen, and he felt a deep familiarity with it. Raditz was thrilled. He wanted to identify the source of this power. He was certain he couldn't miss this reunion. Raditz then abandoned his fight with Piccolo Daimyo. After leaving Piccolo Daimyo behind, Yi-Shen's brother quickly used this mysterious power to find Yi-Shen. Yi-Shen's brother could clearly sense that this mysterious power was more than 10,000 kilometers away from him. Chapter 633 Shock. Although this power was very far away from Yi-Shen's brother, he wasn't afraid of the trouble and was willing to search for it even from a great distance. After abandoning Piccolo, Yi-Shen's brother left alone, riding a flying saucer to pursue this mysterious power. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bulma was preparing to fly from her home to Master Roshi's island. Bulma had been at home for a long time and hadn't seen her old friends for a long time, so she wanted to go to Master Roshi's island to relax. Although Bulma's trip to Master Roshi's house was for fun, she was very generous and didn't forget to bring Master Roshi some gifts. Bulma was never short of money, and this time she brought Master Roshi many expensive gifts. Bulma guessed that the strange old man Master Roshi would definitely like the gift she brought him. After Bulma finished packing everything, she hurried to the airport to catch her flight to Master Roshi's house. Shortly after, Bulma boarded a plane to Master Roshi's house. Meanwhile, in the sky above, Leaf Brother was taking Yi Fomfin to Master Roshi's house. Leaf Brother and Yi Fomfin were riding the flying Nimbus, heading towards Master Roshi's house. Unbeknownst to Leaf Brother, Raditz was following him far behind. Raditz, Leaf Brother's brother, could use Leaf Brother's power to pinpoint his location, constantly updating it to ensure he wouldn't lose track of Leaf Brother's location. Leaf Brother, engrossed in playing with his son Yi Fomfin, was unaware that someone was tailing him. At this moment, 3 different forces were heading towards Master Roshi's island from different directions. One can imagine how lively Master Roshi's island would be when they converged. Of these 3 forces, Bulma was the first to arrive at Master Roshi's island. When Bulma arrived at Master Roshi's island first, she quickly grabbed her gifts and went to find him. Bulma easily found her way to Master Roshi's house, put down her gifts, and knocked on the door. Master Roshi, who was at home, heard the knocking and rushed to open the door. Standing there was Bulma. She hadn't visited his house in a long time. She was a rare guest. Master Roshi was overjoyed to see a little girl come to play, and greeted her warmly. Bulma, what made you decide to come play today? Why did you bring so many gifts? Although Master Roshi said this, his actions spoke volumes. He immediately took the gifts from Bulma and put them in his room. Then Master Roshi came out of the room. He first poured Bulma a glass of water and then warmly said to her, Bulma, please sit down. I'll get you something nice to eat. This wasn't Bulma's first time at Master Roshi's house, so she was quite familiar with it. Without any hesitation, she sat down on the sofa and picked up the remote to watch TV. Bulma was very engrossed in the show when Master Roshi brought out several plates of delicious food and placed them in front of her. Master Roshi was actually very hospitable and generous to his guests, even though he was a little stingy at times. Then Master Roshi sat down on the sofa and watched TV with Bulma. The 2 friends, who hadn't seen each other for a long time, started chatting. Bulma brought up some very casual topics. How are you feeling? You live alone. What would you do if you weren't feeling well? Master Roshi asked Bulma. I'm perfectly healthy. Don't let my age fool you. I've never had any health problems, so there's no need to worry about anything. Your concerns are unnecessary. Master Roshi was very confident in his health and felt that Bulma's worries were unnecessary and didn't need to be considered. However, Bulma meant well, so Master Roshi didn't scold her. After a while, Bulma found the TV program boring and started to feel a little bored, so she said to Master Roshi, why don't we go out and catch some crabs? Master Roshi agreed to Bulma's suggestion. He knew that Bulma loved catching small fish and crabs on the beach. Master Roshi's house was right by the sea, so catching crabs was very convenient. Master Roshi found 2 small buckets in his house and let Bulma go crabbing. Actually, Master Roshi, being quite old, wasn't particularly fond of things children enjoyed, but seeing Bulma so happy, he couldn't bear to let her go out alone. As the host, Master Roshi naturally wanted to be hospitable. So, the rest of the time, Master Roshi accompanied Bulma to catch crabs on the beach. Although Master Roshi didn't participate, he watched Bulma having a great time on her own. Just as Bulma was having a particularly enjoyable time on the beach, Yi-Shen arrived with Yi-Fongfen on the flying Nimbus. Even while Yi-Shen was still above Master Roshi's house, he saw a very familiar figure on the beach outside Master Roshi's house. Yi-Shen felt the figure was very familiar, but didn't immediately recognize it. So, Yi-Shen descended, slowly landing on the ground, and jumped off the flying Nimbus with Yi-Fongfen in his arms. Master Roshi and Bulma both saw Yi-Shen's arrival. Yi-Shen looked exactly the same as before, without any changes, and Bulma and Master Roshi immediately recognized him. Bulma and Master Roshi were also surprised by Yi-Shen's arrival. Suddenly, the island became more crowded and lively. Everyone hadn't seen each other for several years, and it was unexpected that they had all come to Master Roshi's island at the same time. Bulma greeted Yi-Shen happily. "Yi-Shen, what brings you here?" After asking Yi-Shen, Bulma noticed a child holding his hand behind him. Bulma hadn't seen the child before, but he looked somewhat like Yi-Shen. Bulma had already heard that Yi-Shen was married, so she guessed that this might be his child. Time flies. She hadn't realized Yi-Shen's child was so grown up. She had been quite surprised when she heard that Yi-Shen had married Chi-Chi, the daughter of the Ox King. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 634 Descent. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed since they last saw each other. Even Yi-Shen's child had grown up so much. Yi-Shen hadn't expected that this time, bringing Yi-Fongfen to visit Kamiyama's house, he would actually run into Bulma, whom he hadn't seen for years. Yi-Shen was very happy to see her, and when his friend Bulma greeted him, he responded warmly. "Hey, Bulma, what are you doing here? Long time no see. How have you been?" His words were full of concern. Even though they hadn't seen each other for a long time, their friendship remained unchanged. Bulma stopped what she was doing, dusted off her hands, put down her shovel and bucket, and said to Yi-Shen, "I've been staying home for a long time lately, working on my research and inventions, but I found it too boring, and my brain seemed to be stuck. I wanted to get out and have some fun, to find some inspiration and relax, so I chose to come to Master Roshi's island. I think the scenery here is beautiful, with blue skies, white clouds, and golden sand." Yi-Shen has always known that Bulma loves inventing, and it seems that she has come up with many new inventions in the past few years. "If I have the chance, I would also like to visit Bulma's house and see her new inventions in recent years," Bulma asked Yi-Shen at this moment. "Why did you decide to come here today?" Yi-Shen generously replied to Bulma. "My child encountered some trouble today, and he was in a bad mood. To comfort him, I decided to bring him here to play with him for a few days and help him relax," Master Roshi interjected at this moment. "So you two think this place is a resort? A free tourist area?" At this moment, Bulma laughed and teased Master Roshi. "Why can't we come? We always bring you gifts when we come, isn't that like paying your entrance fee?" Master Roshi thought of Bulma, who had brought him many expensive gifts. Master Roshi was suddenly speechless. The value of these gifts could easily cover his daily expenses. Master Roshi then suddenly said seriously, "Let's not just stand there talking. It's almost dinner time. Let's go inside and sit down. I'll prepare some good food for you, and then I'll invite some friends we haven't seen in a long time over for a get-together." Master Roshi brought Bulma and Yi-Shen to his house, settled them in, and then went to the surrounding area to invite some friends over. Soon, Master Roshi returned and began preparing the meal. With several more guests at home, the atmosphere immediately became lively. Everyone chatted, and the long unseen friends seemed to have endless topics to discuss. Yi-Shen and the others were chatting in the living room, while Master Roshi was busy in the kitchen, preparing a feast. After a while, Master Roshi finally stopped and began bringing out a variety of delicious dishes. Yi-Shen then stopped chatting and went to Master Roshi's room to help him set the table. At this moment, Yi-Fongfen was probably the most excited, as he had barely eaten anything all day. Seeing so much food on the table made him incredibly happy. Children love food, which is understandable. Yi-Fongfen found a seat at the table beforehand and waited for the meal to begin. Master Roshi had even brought out several bottles of his prized wine to share with everyone. With so many old friends reunited, it was time for a good drink. Everyone sat around the table and began eating and drinking. Before it officially began, Yi-Shen stood up, pulled Yi-Fanfen to his side, raised his glass to toast everyone, and said, "Come, let me introduce you all. This little boy is my son, Yi-Fanfen. Come on, Fanfen, greet all the uncles and aunties." Yi-Fanfen's little mouth was very sweet. When Yi-Shen told him to greet the uncles and aunties, he greeted them sweetly in his childish voice. These elders especially liked Yi-Fanfen. Since he had already greeted them, the elders couldn't be stingy. So they took out some of their most valuable or meaningful items as gifts for Yi-Fanfen. Yi-Fanfen hadn't expected that his trip to the island would yield so many things. Now everyone knew that Yi-Fanfen was Yi-Shen's son. After Yi-Shen finished introducing Yi-Fanfen, everyone began to drink properly. This time, they were determined to drink to their heart's content. Yi-Shen had been very free at Master Roshi's house, with no one to supervise him. This time, Yi-Shen could finally drink to his heart's content. Just as everyone was enjoying their drinks, Yi-Shen sensed a powerful, mysterious force suddenly descending upon the small knife. Yi-Shen felt this force was somewhat familiar. A sense of foreboding washed over him, and he quickly told everyone present. Yi-Shen said very seriously, "Everyone, stop for a moment. I sensed a mysterious, powerful force descending upon this island. Just now, and this force is moving towards us. Everyone be vigilant, and stop drinking." Upon hearing Yi-Shen's words, Master Roshi was the first to sense something was wrong and asked, "Can you guess who it is?" Yi-Shen shook his head regretfully. "I can't guess right now. Although it feels familiar, I can't immediately place it." Seeing Yi-Shen's expression, Master Roshi knew that Yi-Shen himself wasn't sure either, so he gave up asking. Master Roshi stood up and said to everyone, "Everyone, stop eating for now. Let's go out and check the situation." Everyone agreed to Master Roshi's suggestion, put down their things, and prepared to go out. Before Yi-Shen left, he specifically instructed Yi-Fanfen, "Fanfen, you stay at Grandpa Turtle's house and don't come out. No matter what happens outside, don't come out, okay? It's dangerous outside. We might encounter a powerful opponent, and Daddy is afraid he won't be able to protect you." Yi-Shen expressed his concerns. He had a premonition that the approaching opponent seemed particularly strong and difficult to deal with. Yi-Shen couldn't say for sure that he could escape unscathed, so he needed to prepare in advance to protect his son. After hearing Yi-Shen's words, Yi-Fanfen nodded somewhat confusedly and replied in a childish voice, "Okay, Daddy, I won't come out." Yi-Shen gently patted Yi-Fanfen's head and said, "Good boy, listen to me. I'm going out now. Remember what Daddy said." Before leaving, Yi-Shen gave Yi-Fanfen many instructions, because he knew his son very well. Yi-Fanfen was very mischievous and loved to contradict him. Although Yi-Shen had given Yi-Fanfen these instructions, he was still a little worried. Just as he was leaving, Yi-Shen turned back to look at Yi-Fanfen. Yi-Fanfen was sitting there obediently, eating the food on the table. Chapter 635 Proposal. Yi-Shen, still worried, left Master Roshi's house, leaving Yi-Fanfen alone. He and the others then went to confront a mysterious and powerful force. They stood on a deserted beach in front of Master Roshi's house. Although they hadn't seen anyone when they came out, a powerful energy surge approached them after a while. Yi-Shen looked closely and realized the object was a flying saucer. He suddenly understood, this powerful force belonged to his brother Raditz. Yi-Shen inwardly cursed, it had finally happened. He had heard about his brother's arrival on this planet, but he had been busy with other things and hadn't expected Raditz to find him so quickly. Suddenly, Yi-Shen was at a loss for how to deal with Raditz, knowing his strength well. Yi-Shen's brow furrowed, this was going to be a fierce battle. Raditz's flying saucer landed steadily above Yi-Shen and his companions, then descended. Master Roshi and the others had never seen such a strange aircraft before, and they were all quite surprised when they saw it. As the oddly shaped flying saucer landed on the beach, its hatch suddenly opened, and a mysterious figure stepped out. Yi-Shen immediately recognized him as his brother, Raditz. Raditz walked down the steps onto the beach and glanced around, instantly recognizing Yi-Shen among the group. The moment their eyes met, a powerful spark ignited. Raditz was dressed in luxurious clothes, exuding an air of nobility, like a young nobleman. Yi-Shen, having been on Earth for so long, had long since adapted to life there, and his attire was very casual, creating a stark contrast with Raditz. After glancing at Yi-Shen's clothing, Raditz spoke to him with utter disdain. "It's been so long, and you've become like this." Yi-Shen didn't answer Raditz. Master Roshi and the others, unaware that this mysterious person was actually speaking to Jia, ignored Raditz, and the air suddenly became incredibly quiet, the atmosphere extremely awkward. Sensing the awkwardness, Lanaz coughed twice to cover his embarrassment and continued speaking to Yi-Shen. "I think you've already guessed my purpose in coming to this planet, so I believe you know perfectly well what you're going to do next. I hope you can make a choice quickly and not force me to take action." Yi-Shen remained stubborn. He wouldn't listen to this guy. Master Roshi and the others seemed to have realized something. Master Roshi realized that this mysterious person was speaking to Yi-Shen, and it seemed Yi-Shen had some secret they didn't know. However, as a friend of so long, Master Roshi trusted Yi-Shen's character completely. Master Roshi had never doubted that Yi-Shen was a kind-hearted person, so no matter what choice Yi-Shen made, he believed Yi-Shen would stand on the side of justice. Yi-Shen sensed Raditz's aggressive stance. Seeing that Raditz seemed unwilling to give up, Yi-Shen retorted, "I advise you not to waste your time. What's the point of coming to such a distant planet? I won't listen to you, and I certainly won't go back with you." This was Yi-Shen's reply, which greatly displeased Raditz. He felt disrespected. As a pampered young master, Raditz couldn't tolerate Yi-Shen's tone. Before Yi-Shen spoke, Raditz had maintained a polite demeanor, but after Yi-Shen finished speaking, he abandoned even that basic politeness and said fiercely, "Fine, since your attitude is so tough, don't blame me for making my fists even harder." Yi-Shen understood from Raditz's words that Raditz seemed to want to teach him a lesson, but it was still uncertain who was stronger and who would ultimately punish whom. Yi-Shen wasn't afraid at all, stubbornly replying to Raditz, "Do you think I'd still be afraid of you like before?" No. Yi-Shen suddenly remembered some unhappy things from the past, how Raditz had bullied him, how he had treated him like a dog. Although Yi-Shen and Raditz were brothers, Raditz was their father's favorite child, and Yi-Shen didn't receive as much love. So, Yi-Shen was bullied by Raditz from a young age, and his parents never intervened. Yi-Shen had never felt parental love, let alone brotherly love, so he wouldn't go back with him. Yi-Shen hated that place. He wanted to stay on Earth and continue living a happy life. He had a wife and children here, which were his attachments. When Yi-Shen thought of Kiki and Yi Fanfen, he couldn't suppress the happiness on his face. Raditz seemed to glean something from Yi-Shen's expression and said, "Before I came here, I already inquired about your situation. I know how you're living on this planet, but I still have to remind you, don't forget your purpose for coming here." Raditz immediately reminded Yi-Shen, who also remembered. He initially came to this planet with a mission, but Yi-Shen abandoned that mission and chose a more positive life. Yi-Shen answered Raditz without fear. "Whether I remember this mission or not, it doesn't matter. I don't want to complete it. This isn't something I want to do. I have no obligation to help you complete this mission, so if you want to complete it, then do it yourself." Raditz was particularly dissatisfied with Yi-Shen's words, and said with a very ugly expression, "Oh, it's been so long. You've been living a successful life on Earth, and now you've grown wings and dare to talk to me like that." Master Roshi and Krillin, hearing this mysterious person and Yi-Shen talking back and forth, found the two of them particularly strange. Master Roshi suddenly felt that he had never really understood Yi-Shen. Yi-Shen replied to Raditz, "I advise you to stop talking nonsense. Just use whatever tricks you have. Only a good fight will let us know each other's strength." This was Yi-Shen's suggestion, but Raditz didn't seem to want to fight yet. He had been traveling for so long and needed to rest properly. Chapter 636 Debate. Raditz hatched a wicked plan. He intended to reveal Yi-Shen's true identity to his friends, hoping to sow discord and create discord between them. Raditz's idea was incredibly insidious and malicious. He casually placed a stool-like object on the beach, sat down, and even set up a parasol, sitting there with an air of nonchalance. Yi-Shen particularly disliked Raditz's aristocratic manner. He couldn't believe that after so long, Raditz was still exactly the same, disgusting and repulsive. Raditz was about to reveal Yi-Shen's identity when he began. "Yi-Shen's friends, I see you don't seem to know Yi-Shen very well. I suspect he hasn't told you his true identity yet. So today, I will reveal it to you. I hope you won't be too surprised." Yi-Shen clenched his fists tightly. He had known Raditz would do this all along. Yi-Shen was actually a little nervous. He was afraid that after Raditz revealed his true identity, Master Roshi and the others would doubt him and distance themselves from him. However, it seemed that Yishen's worries were unnecessary. Even after hearing what Raditz said, Master Roshi and the others still trusted Yishen and chose to stand with him. This is what Raditz said to Master Roshi and the others. Your friend, Leaf Spirit, is my younger brother, whose real name is Kakarot. He's a big bad guy we sent to your planet, originally tasked with destroying Earth. When Master Roshi and the others heard Raditz's words, they were only slightly surprised, but they didn't doubt Leaf Spirit because they knew he had been doing good deeds and had never harmed the humans on Earth. Master Roshi then said to Raditz, even if everything you're saying is true, Leaf Spirit hasn't done it. So, don't get any bad ideas. We won't doubt Leaf Spirit. I advise you to give up now. Master Roshi was quite domineering. He wanted to protect his friend Leaf Spirit. But Raditz didn't seem to have given up. He continued, Leaf Spirit was chosen by my father to be an envoy sent to destroy humanity on Earth. He carries this mission. Are you still willing to be his friend? Aren't you afraid he's just acting? Aren't you afraid he'll change his mind and destroy Earth? Master Roshi said firmly. I believe Yishen wouldn't be as shameless as you. Raditz gritted his teeth, enraged by Master Roshi's words. Yishen, deeply moved by Master Roshi's words, expressed his gratitude, saying, thank you for trusting me. I will definitely not let you down. Master Roshi noticed Yishen's nervousness and patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. It's alright, we're friends. We've known each other for so long, I still trust my own judgment. The more Raditz saw the good relationship between Master Roshi and Yishen, the angrier he became. Raditz devised another malicious plan, to reveal Yishen's even more shocking identity. Raditz said smugly, Yishen is my younger brother. He shares the same father as me. He doesn't belong to your planet. There's a saying on your planet, those who are not of our kind will surely have different hearts. Aren't you afraid he might do something to harm you? Raditz was still trying to sow discord, but Master Roshi and the others were too lazy to listen to his nonsense. Master Roshi wasn't bothered by Yishen's true identity, he was just surprised. However, Master Roshi still trusted Yishen completely, so Raditz's attempts to sow discord were ineffective. Raditz seemed unwilling to give up, he wanted to say something more. But Yishen didn't want to give him the chance to spout nonsense. Just as Raditz was about to speak, Yishen interrupted him and took the initiative to tell his own story. Yishen calmly said, this person who claims to be my brother, what he said in the first part is true, but I want to tell you what happened later myself, so as not to cause any misunderstandings. Yishen paused for a moment and continued. Here's the thing, Yishen said. I was indeed sent to destroy humanity on Earth, but due to an accident, when I was young, I accidentally hit my head and lost my memories. I forgot my mission on Earth, and it was as if I was reborn. Everyone listened intently to Yishen's words. Seeing their focused attention, Yishen continued, after losing my memories, I met Sun Wukong, and we became friends. We began our journey of upholding justice and punishing evil. What happened after that, I think you all know, so I won't go into details. After hearing Yishen's words, everyone began to ponder. They were skeptical, given Yishen's special identity. His sudden revelation naturally aroused suspicion. They were still struggling to process the fact that Yishen was initially a bad guy. Seeing their silence, Yishen knew they were still somewhat bothered by his true identity. At this moment, Yishen decided to clarify his stance and once again shared his inner thoughts with everyone. I know you haven't accepted my true identity yet, but I want to say that my previous identity doesn't mean anything. That's all in the past. In the days since I lost my memory, I haven't done anything bad. I've been saving humanity, so you don't need to worry about me turning into a bad person. After Yishen stated his position, seeing that everyone's expressions had improved, he continued, you must rest assured, I will not attack humans, I will not become their enemy, we will always be friends, Yishen said with unwavering determination. From Yishen's eyes, everyone saw his inner world, and they slowly began to believe his words. Raditz, seeing that his plan was about to fail, began to devise other methods. Just then, Yifanfen ran out of Master Roshi's house. Yifanfen had stayed in Master Roshi's house for a long time. He heard a lot of noise outside, and other people were arguing with his father. Unable to resist his curiosity, Yifanfen secretly ran away, forgetting Yishen's instructions. The moment Yifanfen came out, Raditz was the first to notice him. Because Raditz was facing Master Roshi's house, when Raditz first saw Yifanfen, he felt that Yifanfen looked very familiar, like someone he knew. Then Raditz glanced at Yifanfen and instantly understood that Yifanfen looked like Master Roshi. Chapter 637 Surprise. Raz instantly understood the relationship between Yi-Shen and the child before him, and began to plot other sinister schemes. Raz planned to kidnap Yifanfen as leverage against Yi-Shen, making Yifanfen a hostage. This way, Yi-Shen would have reservations and wouldn't dare to challenge him so openly. Yifanfen secretly hid behind the door, thinking no one had noticed him, but Raz was the first to spot him. Raz suddenly flew in front of Yifanfen, startling him. Yi-Shen initially thought Raz was going to attack him, so he took a few steps back, but things weren't as he expected. It turned out Raz was going to capture Yifanfen. By the time Yi-Shen realized what was happening, it was too late. He tried to protect Yifanfen, but Raz was already there first. Yifanfen was completely stunned. He didn't recognize this person, he had never seen him before. Yifanfen was still an innocent child, unaware of the danger that was imminent. In his childish voice, Yifanfen asked Raditz, "Uncle, who are you?" Raditz gave a cold smile and said, "Who I am, your father can tell you, or you'll find out later, but you did call him uncle correctly." Yifanfen didn't understand Raditz's words. Just as Yifanfen was about to ask again, Raditz picked Yifanfen up and carried him on his shoulder, flying a great distance away from Yi-Shen. Yi-Shen was extremely anxious when he saw his son being taken away. He hurriedly shouted at Raditz, "You're despicable. You actually used such insidious tricks, even targeting a child. After all these years, you've become even more despicable. You've become more and more skilled at using shameful methods. It's definitely your usual style." Raditz didn't care about Yi-Shen's sarcasm. He didn't care what others thought of him, he only needed to complete his mission. Yi-Shen was worried about Yifanfen. He feared that Raditz might do something harmful to Yifanfen in his rage, so Yi-Shen decided to rescue him immediately. However, taking Yifanfen back from Raditz was no easy task. Yi-Shen decided to launch a direct attack on Raditz, but he wasn't confident he could succeed alone. He hoped to get Master Roshi's help. Yi-Shen went to Master Roshi's side and said, "Old man, do me a favor." Master Roshi said, "What favor? Just tell me what you need. Don't be shy, I'll definitely help you." Yi-Shen was deeply moved by Master Roshi's words, but he immediately became serious. He still needed to rescue his son, Yifanfen. Yi-Shen pointed to Raditz's tail and said to Master Roshi, "Do you see his tail? I also have a tail like that. This tail is the weakest point on our bodies, our fatal weakness. If this tail is attacked, it will cause us great harm." Master Roshi indeed remembered that Leaf Chakra also had a similar tail. Leaf Chakra was, of course, the one who knew Raditz best, making him the most suitable person to devise the plan. Leaf Chakra pointed out Raditz's weakness, and then he explained the detailed robbery plan to Master Roshi. Leaf Chakra spoke very calmly. "My plan is this, we can team up. One of us will grab Raditz's tail, and the other will attack from the front. The one attacking from the front will draw Raditz's attention, making him focus all his attention on the one attacking from the front. The other person can then sneak up on him from behind and grab his tail in one go. If he discovers our plan, it will be very difficult to implement it the first time, as he will be on guard," Yi-Shen explained at length, and Master Roshi understood, but Yi-Shen hadn't explained the specific division of labor. So Master Roshi asked Yi-Shen, "I understand your plan, but how exactly are you arranging it? Who will grab his tail, and who will attack him from the front?" Yi-Shen had already thought of this and answered Master Roshi, "I think I'm more suitable for attacking him from the front. He's more wary of me, and I can draw his attention. You can find a suitable opportunity, and when he exposes his tail as a weakness, you can quickly strike and try to grab his tail in one go." Yi-Shen spoke at length again, and Master Roshi finally understood. The plan was finalized, and all that was left was to execute it. So, Yi-Shen and Master Roshi divided the work and began to fight Raditz together. However, Raditz's strength exceeded their expectations. Even with Yi-Shen and Master Roshi working together, they were still struggling against Raditz, whose strength far surpassed theirs. Yi-Shen appeared to be struggling, while Raditz easily dealt with him during their head-on attacks, and could also be distracted to guard against attacks from behind. Raditz smugly mocked Yi-Shen and Master Roshi's strength, saying arrogantly, "But you two are only this weak? I'm truly disappointed, especially you, Yi-Shin. You've disappointed me so much. I didn't expect that after all this time, your strength is still so little. You still want to take your son back from me? What a pipe dream. Yi-Shin was provoked by his brother's words. He hadn't expected his brother to become so powerful after being away for so long. But how could Yi-Shin give up so easily? His son, Yi Fanfan, was still in his brother Raditz's hands, and he was determined to get his son back. Otherwise, given Raditz's temper, he might do something to harm Yi Fanfan. Facing Raditz's provocation, Yi-Shin calmly replied, even if you're strong, I'll always find a way to deal with you. Just as Yi-Shin and Raditz were locked in a stalemate, an uninvited guest suddenly arrived. The person who suddenly appeared was Piccolo Daimyo, who had encountered Raditz some time ago. Piccolo Daimyo's sudden appearance greatly surprised Yi-Shin and Master Roshi. After being defeated by Raditz, Piccolo Daimyo was extremely unwilling to accept it, so in order to prove that he could defeat Raditz, he relentlessly pursued Raditz. Unwilling to admit defeat, Piccolo Daimyo relentlessly pursued Raditz, finally finding him on Kamiyama's island. Unfortunately, Raditz was currently clashing with Yi-Shin and his friends. Piccolo Daimyo couldn't intervene rashly. He wanted to wait until Yi-Shin and Raditz finished their fight before challenging Raditz to a match. Piccolo Daimyo watched Yi-Shin and Raditz fight from the sidelines, but had no intention of intervening. When Yi-Shin saw Piccolo Daimyo arrive on the island, he was surprised but didn't have the chance to deal with him yet. Yi-Shin was no match for Raditz, so he stopped and asked Piccolo Daimyo, "What are you doing here?" Chapter 638 Negligence. Piccolo Daimyo heard Yi-Shin's question and recounted his encounter with Raditz. "I met him before, fought him, and lost. I wasn't satisfied, so I wanted to find him again and have another match." It turned out Piccolo Daimyo's reason for being there was so simple. Yi-Shin, quick-witted, devised a plan after hearing Piccolo Daimyo's story, to team up with him to deal with Raditz. Yi-Shin secretly approached Piccolo Daimyo and told him his idea. "Since we both have the same goal," he whispered, "why don't we join forces?" After listening to Yi-Shin's words, Piccolo Daimyo thought for a moment, and after a silence, he told Yi-Shin about his plan. "Your suggestion is excellent." Piccolo Daimyo thought for a while. He felt that Yi-Shin's method would only benefit him and wouldn't have any negative impact on him at present. Therefore, Piccolo Daimyo agreed to Yi-Shin's request. "I agree to your idea," Piccolo Daimyo said to Yi-Shin. "Let's join forces." And so, Piccolo Daimyo and Yi-Shin reached an agreement to join forces. Now, Yi-Shin had another person to help him fight Raditz. However, even though Yi-Shin and his team now had 3 people, they still failed against the powerful Raditz. Raditz successfully escaped from Yi-Shin and his team and took Yi Fanfan away. Yi-Shin was very anxious. Raditz had taken his son, and he feared something might happen to him. After Raditz escaped, Yi-Shin and his team lost contact with him. This news was terrible news for Yi-Shin and his team. If they couldn't find Raditz, Yi-Shin would lose contact with his son. Yi-Shin was extremely anxious. He wanted to get news of Raditz as soon as possible. With Piccolo's help, they used the Dragon Ball tracker together. After using the tracker, it quickly obtained Raditz's accurate location, allowing Yi-Shin and his friends to find Raditz and Yi Fanfan's location. Having captured Raditz's location information, Yi-Shin and his friends couldn't wait to find him. Yi-Shin wanted to find Raditz immediately and couldn't wait to set off. So, Yi-Shin, along with Piccolo and Sage, set off to find Raditz. Along the way, Yi-Shin was constantly worried about Yi Fanfan's safety. With the help of the Dragon Ball tracker, Yi-Shin and his friends quickly found Raditz's location. Before they found Raditz, a small incident occurred along the way. They met a person named Piccolo. After hearing Piccolo's story, Yi-Shin learned that Piccolo and Raditz had also had a past conflict. Long ago, Piccolo and Raditz had a falling out, and Piccolo held a grudge, vowing to find Raditz one day and exact revenge. So, when Yi-Shin and his friends were on their way to find Raditz, they encountered Piccolo. Piccolo was also searching for Raditz, but with their help, he could join them. Along the way, Yi-Shin and Piccolo reached an agreement to join forces against Raditz, as their common enemy was him. After finding Raditz, Yi-Shin and Piccolo were eager for a final showdown. Yi-Shin saw Raditz and Yi Fanfan, whom Raditz was holding. Worried about Yi Fanfan, Yi-Shin anxiously said to Raditz, "You're threatening me with my son? What kind of person do you think you are? You're just a despicable scoundrel, acting all high and mighty. It's ridiculous." Raditz had disliked Yi-Shen's contemptuous tone since childhood, and even now that they were both grown up, he still disliked it. Raditz was provoked by Yi-Shen's words. He particularly disliked Yi-Shen's disdain, so Raditz angrily retorted. "You dare talk to me like that? With your strength, even without these tricks, you're no match for me." The two grew increasingly angry, and it looked like they were about to fight. Yi-Shen and Piccolo teamed up, removing their training gear and quickly joining the battle. However, Raditz's strength was far beyond their expectations. Even Yi-Shen and Piccolo together were no match for him. Piccolo, seeing that Yi-Shen and Piccolo were no match for Raditz, decided to join their fight. Now Yi-Shen's side had 3 people, while Raditz was alone, but Raditz only used one move to take away Piccolo's left hand. Yi-Shen was stunned when he saw Piccolo lose his left hand. Raditz's strength was truly astounding. Piccolo lost his left hand in just one move. If that were the case, even if the 3 of them fought with all their might, they wouldn't be able to defeat Raditz. Even if things continued this way, Yi-Shen and his team had no chance of victory. After thinking for a moment, Yi-Shen realized they had to use a different method. They couldn't continue like this. So, Yi-Shen and his team stopped what they were doing and decided to discuss other strategies. Yi-Shen, Piccolo, and Piccolo discussed it for a while, and Yi-Shen came up with a plan. He said to everyone, "How about this? Since Piccolo has already been attacked, Piccolo and I will face Raditz head-on. Piccolo, you take this opportunity to prepare your ultimate move. We'll give you a chance, use your ultimate move against Raditz. That way, you still have a chance to win." Piccolo thought about it and agreed with Yi-Shen's plan. "We believe you, we'll all listen to you." After the 3 discussed it, they began to implement this strategy, but it had little effect. Piccolo unleashed a powerful attack, but it missed Raditz and was dodged. Piccolo used his special beam cannon, but Raditz dodged it again, leaving Piccolo extremely disappointed that his attack had failed. Raditz was particularly smug. Just as Raditz was marveling at Piccolo's power, he momentarily lost his focus and was caught by Yi-Shen. Due to Raditz's carelessness, his tail was exposed, and Yi-Shen seized the opportunity, grabbing it. Raditz's tail was his weakest point. Once it was grabbed, it would cause him great harm. Yi-Shen was overjoyed. He had finally caught Raditz's tail. Yi-Shen attacked Raditz from this point, causing all of Raditz's power to vanish. Chapter 639 Ultimate Move. When Raditz sensed Yi-Shen attacking him from the tail, he felt utterly desperate, having already anticipated the consequences. Sure enough, after a while, Raditz felt all his power vanish, and he became incredibly panicked. The previously arrogant Raditz suddenly lost his swagger. Yi-Shen was particularly pleased with the current situation. Raditz had lost his power, and Yi-Shen could easily deal with him as he pleased. Without his power, Raditz was like a changed person. He suddenly became incredibly pitiful. To beg Yi-Shen to spare his life, Raditz pleaded, "Please, let me go. Don't kill me. I promise I won't do anything evil again." However, when Raditz said this, Yi-Shen didn't believe him. Raditz was known for his fickle nature. His words were like used toilet paper. At first, Yi-Shen ignored Raditz, so Raditz continued to plead. "Yi-Shen, please believe me, I really won't do it again," Yi-Shen said contemptuously. "Believe you? I'd rather believe a dog." Although Raditz was very dissatisfied with Yi-Shen's words, he dared not show it, because Yi-Shen's strength completely overwhelmed him. Therefore, Raditz could only pretend to be pitiful and beg Yi-Shen to let him go. Raditz repeatedly assured him, "Please let me go, I won't dare to do it again, I really won't dare to do it again, please let me go. For the sake of us being brothers, we have blood ties, please let me go, my dear brother." Raditz brought up the fact that he and Yi-Shen were brothers, and Yi-Shen's heart softened immediately. He felt that even if there was a great grudge between the 2 brothers, they would never harm each other's lives. Kind-hearted Yi-Shen thought this way, but Raditz never did. He had nearly killed Yi-Shen many times. Seeing Yi-Shen's expression soften, Raditz knew Yi-Shen had softened. He knew Yi-Shen well. As brothers of many years, he knew Yi-Shen was always a soft-hearted person. Raditz felt there was hope Yi-Shen would let him go, so he pleaded one last time. "Please let me go, we're brothers. You can't be so cruel to your own brother. If you really kill me, think about what father will think." Yi-Shen was completely fooled by Raditz's lies. His heart softened completely, and he said, "If you want me to let you go, I can, as long as you promise not to do it again." Raditz immediately became happy. Hearing Yi-Shen say this meant Yi-Shen had decided to let him go. Raditz said with a particularly sly grin, I promise you, I'll never do it again. Yi-Shen still believed Raditz's lies and released him. Yi-Shen finally drove Raditz away, and then released Yi Fanfen. Yi Fanfen had been terrified by Raditz during this time, and now that he was finally back in his father's arms, he cried bitterly. Seeing Yi Fanfen crying so miserably, Yi-Shen could only keep comforting him. Because of Yi-Shen's soft heart, he released Raditz, which caused him great trouble. How could Raditz possibly keep his word and never do such things again? Raditz was truly a fickle person, he never kept his promises. After gaining his freedom, Raditz began to recover his power, and when his power was fully restored, Raditz returned with a vengeance. Raditz returned seeking revenge on Yi-Shen. Having fully recovered his strength, Raditz was incredibly terrifying. His intense desire for revenge put Yi-Shen in a difficult situation. Previously, Yi-Shen had only found Raditz's weakness through luck and the combined efforts of the three of them. Now, Raditz only needed to deal with Yi-Shen alone, and Yi-Shen was no match for him. Raditz wanted nothing more than to kill Yi-Shen immediately, as Yi-Shen's previous actions had deeply humiliated him. Yi Fanfen, seeing Yi-Shen in such a predicament and on the verge of death, became extremely worried. He feared for his father's safety and was filled with anxiety. At this critical moment, Yi Fanfen suddenly erupted. Stimulated, Yi Fanfen's body unleashed astonishing power, startling both Yi-Shen and Raditz. Yi Fanfen suddenly unleashed astonishing power. Just as Raditz was about to harm Yi Fanfen used this incredible force to collide with Raditz. Before Raditz could react, Yi Fanfen slammed into him, leaving Raditz in a sorry state. Raditz was severely injured by the impact. Raditz was furious. He unleashed a powerful attack, intending to kill Yi Fanfen, who had injured him. Although Yi Fanfen didn't know why he had suddenly unleashed such power, he was still just a child. How could he possibly be as strong as Raditz? After colliding with Raditz, Yi Fanfen realized the enormity of his actions and fearfully hid to the side, afraid of Raditz's angry gaze. Raditz's ultimate attack was already aimed at Yi Fanfen, who was hiding in the corner. Raditz sneered, wishing he could kill Yi Fanfen immediately. The injured Yi Fanfen saw Raditz's intention and was extremely anxious. Just as Raditz's ultimate attack was about to harm Yi Fanfen, at this critical moment, Yi Fanfen used the last of his strength to control Raditz's movements. Raditz stopped his actions, and Yi Fanfen quickly said to Piccolo, Now, Piccolo, quickly use your ultimate attack on Raditz. I've controlled him. Stop him. He's going to kill my son. This is the only chance to kill Raditz. Time was extremely tight. After hearing Yi Fanfen's words, Piccolo quickly prepared his ultimate attack, and then immediately used it to attack Raditz. Because Raditz was completely focused on killing Yi Fanfen, he didn't notice that Piccolo was attacking him from behind. Chapter 640 Despondency. Piccolo finally struck Raditz successfully. Raditz felt a sharp pain in his back and released his grip, allowing Yi Fanfen to finally find safety. Seeing the situation had changed, Raditz could no longer attack him, and finally safe, Yi Fanfen quickly returned to his father, Yi-Shen's side. Seeing his father injured, Yi Fanfen was very anxious. He tried to help Yi-Shen up and asked, Father, how are you? Are you badly hurt? Let me help you up so we can rest in a safe place. Although Yi-Shen was seriously injured, he didn't want his son to worry. His son was still young and shouldn't have to endure so much pain, so Yi-Shen acted strong in front of Yi Fanfen. Yi-Shen smiled at Yi Fanfen, feigning ease, and said, My dear son, I'm fine. With Yi Fanfen's help, Yi-Shen stood up, making it impossible for Yi Fanfen to see the pain he had endured. Raditz, still struggling, didn't want to die like this. He hoped to take someone down with him before he died, and he hoped that person was Yi-Shen. Severely imitating Piccolo, Raditz struggled to Yi-Shen's side. Piccolo and the others, unaware of Raditz's intentions, unleashed their ultimate move. Piccolo used his special attack, the special beam cannon, to attack Raditz who was approaching Yi-Shen. Before Raditz was hit by Piccolo's special beam cannon, he sensed someone attacking him from behind, so he sped up and ran towards Yi-Shen. Just as Raditz was hit by Piccolo's special beam cannon, he grabbed Yi-Shen who was leaving, and Yi-Shen reacted very quickly, immediately pushing Yi Fanfen away, thus saving Yi Fanfen from being hit. This happened so fast that almost no one noticed how it happened until the result occurred, and they were all shocked by what they saw. After Yi Shen pushed Yi Fanfen away, he fell to the ground. When he got up, he saw a horrific scene. Yi Fanfen saw blood everywhere. 2 corpses lay before him, their blood indistinguishable from each other's. Yi Fanfen couldn't accept this sight. He was horrified. He saw his father, mangled and bloodied, lying in a pool of blood. Raditz was in the same state, though Raditz seemed to be in even worse shape than Yi Shen, whose body was at least partially intact, while Raditz's body was torn to pieces. When Piccolo saw this, he realized his mistake. Before using a special move, he hadn't considered Raditz's determination to take Yi Shen down with him. Piccolo was filled with guilt. He sadly approached Yi Shen's corpse, blaming himself immensely. He felt he had indirectly caused Yi Shen's death, and he was overwhelmed with remorse. Piccolo was on the verge of collapse. He had killed his comrade. Meanwhile, Yi Shen's son, Yi Fanfen, was weeping over Yi Shen's body. Piccolo was suffering immense torment. He didn't dare comfort Yi Fanfen. He felt terribly guilty towards both Yi Shen and Yi Fanfen. Standing beside Yi Fanfen, Piccolo silently clenched his fists, wishing he could punch himself in the face. But what good would that do? Yi Shen was dead, his body lying before him. His mistake was irreversible. After standing beside Yi Fanfen for a while, Piccolo felt like a sinner and silently walked away, his spirits low. Yi Fanfen still couldn't accept the reality. He saw his father's lifeless body lying on the ground, surrounded by blood. Yi Fanfen disregarded everything else and embraced the blood-stained corpse, weeping loudly. Father, father, wake up. It's me, Fanfen, open your eyes and look at me. This can't be real. You must be joking, playing hide and seek with me, right? This can't be real, father, father, look at me, Yi Fanfen cried bitterly. The others, seeing Yi Fanfen's grief, were also heartbroken. They couldn't bear to see their friend die like this. But no one dared to comfort Yi Fanfen. They could only stand silently by, watching Yi Fanfen cry incessantly, shouting loudly at Yi Shen's body, but they were helpless. Now, Raditz had been defeated by Piccolo and Piccolo. Although this was a happy thing, something even more tragic had happened. Their friend Yi Shen had perished together with Raditz. Soon after Yi Shen's death, the news spread throughout the world. Everyone knew of Yi Shen's demise, and Master Roshi learned of it immediately. Master Roshi found it extremely difficult to accept, and he arrived at the scene with a heavy heart. When Master Roshi arrived, he saw Yi Fanfen holding Yi Shen's body, crying loudly. When Master Roshi witnessed this scene, he felt a deep pang of sorrow. Yi Fanfen was still young, yet he had seen his father, Yi Shen, die before his very eyes. This must have left a profound scar on his heart. On his way there, Master Roshi considered sending someone to the temple to seek help from the god who could restore Yi Shen's life. Master Roshi knew very well that the god and Yi Shen had shared a very intimate past, so he believed the god would grant the request and help Yi Shen recover. Master Roshi's brows furrowed tightly. He sadly approached Yi Fanfen, knelt down, and gently touched his shoulder, speaking in a heavy voice, "Child, don't cry. Crying won't help. Don't hurt yourself." But Yi Fanfen couldn't heed any words of comfort. His mind was completely consumed by this tragic event. He couldn't escape it, trapped in his grief. Yi Fanfen ignored Master Roshi and continued to cry loudly, his shoulders shaking with each sob, which pained Master Roshi greatly. Although Yi Fanfen's behavior was very impolite, Master Roshi didn't care, because the most important thing at the moment was Yi Shen's matter, and a child like Yi Fanfen deserved Master Roshi's special attention. Master Roshi spoke earnestly to Yi Fanfen, "Child, your father wouldn't want to see you so depressed. If he could still speak, he would definitely tell you, 'Child, don't cry.'" Yi Fanfen took these words to heart, because he remembered some of his father's teachings. A man, regardless of age, should not cry easily. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 641 Somber. So Yi Fanfen stubbornly raised her little face and wiped away her tears with the back of her small hand. Master Roshi took out a tissue and wiped away the tear stains on Yi Fanfen's face. At this moment, Yi Fanfen, like a little adult, solemnly said to Master Roshi, "I will be as strong as my father taught me. I want to be a man. I want to be the kind of person my father hoped I would become." Before, Yi Fanfen was too immature to understand, but now, Having witnessed her father die before her eyes, she was like a different person, incredibly mature, having grown up all at once. Master Roshi simply comforted Yi Fanfen with a few words, and Yi Fanfen took them to heart. Just as Master Roshi was still talking to Yi Fanfen, God arrived. Seeing Yi Fanfen's body, God frowned, knowing something terrible had happened. He remembered how righteous and kind Yi Fanfen had been, and now she was in such a state, and felt a deep sense of sorrow. Then the god transformed into a transparent ray of light, which enveloped Yi Shen's body and vanished. The god took Yi Shen's corpse away. Only Master Roshi knew what had happened, and time was of the essence. There was no time to explain to Yi Fanfen. Yi Fanfen watched as a strange stranger snatched her father's body, and she jumped to her feet in a panic. Master Roshi grabbed her arm, comforting her. "Don't worry, this is a god. I asked him to help your father." Yi Fanfen looked at Master Roshi in confusion. She had never seen a god before, nor did she know of their existence. She believed that the dead could not come back to life, so she didn't understand Master Roshi's words. "Grandpa Roshi, what do you mean? My father is already dead, isn't he? What can a god do for my father?" Yi Fanfen was still young and didn't understand many things, but Master Roshi didn't want her to carry too much burden at such a young age. He wanted her to live happily. Master Roshi didn't answer Yi Fanfen's question because he felt Yi Fanfen didn't need to know so much. But Yi Fanfen kept pressing Master Roshi for answers. "Grandpa Turtle, tell me quickly. Why aren't you saying anything?" Faced with Yi Fanfen's persistent questioning, Master Roshi felt particularly disappointed. He realized he hadn't protected them well enough, causing Yi Fanfen to face her father's death at such a young age. Master Roshi could only remain silent. The usually talkative Master Roshi was no longer in the mood to speak. He sat silently beside Yi Fanfen, hoping his quiet companionship would calm her down. In truth, Master Roshi knew very well that if he asked the gods for help, Yi Shen could be saved, but it wasn't a certainty. Master Roshi dared not tell Yi Fanfen this. Yi Fanfen's greatest wish right now was for her father to wake up. If Master Roshi told her this, he guessed Yi Fanfen would be overly excited, to the point of taking it for granted. Ultimately, Master Roshi was simply afraid that Yi Fanfen would be disappointed, because even he couldn't guarantee that saving Yi Shen wouldn't be impossible. Time passed, and Yi Fanfen finally calmed down a bit. Until he was exhausted from crying and had no strength left, Master Roshi took him home. Master Roshi carefully looked after Yi Fanfen, afraid of upsetting him. However, Yi Fanfen was in no state to be happy, so Master Roshi tried his best not to disturb him, hoping he could slowly recover on his own. Everything seemed calm, but in reality, turbulent undercurrents were brewing. Meanwhile, on another planet in the universe, Saiyans learned about the Dragon Balls and decided to come to Earth to obtain them. Two Saiyans, having heard about the Dragon Balls, kept it a secret and set off from their planet towards Earth. These two Saiyans, having somehow learned about the Dragon Balls, were filled with curiosity about this wondrous thing, but they didn't know how to find them. News of Raditz's death at the hands of Earthlings reached their planet, prompting their master to send two people to Earth to investigate and avenge Raditz. These two happened to be the same people who had learned of the Dragon Balls, allowing them to leave openly. However, they had a mission, to reach Earth within a year. This was a significant challenge. The two Saiyans traveled to Earth in a flying saucer, with only a few years allotted. They would spend that year adrift in the vast universe. Years later, Yi Fanfen had grown considerably. During that year, he had learned a great deal. Because his father had been a great man, doing many good deeds and becoming a hero, Yi Fanfen, as the orphan of Yi Shen, did not live a miserable life. He received much care and love, but there was always an empty corner in his heart, the void left by his father, Yi Shen. A full year has passed since Yi Shen's death. On the anniversary of his passing, Master Roshi, along with Yi Fanfen and some of Yi Shen's close friends, came to pay their respects at his grave. Standing silently before Yi Shen's tomb, their minds were filled with memories of their time with him, those unforgettable days, as if they had happened just yesterday, as if Yi Shen were still alive. They still couldn't accept the news of his death. Yi Shen's grave was a cenotaph. His body had been taken away by the gods, so he wasn't buried after his death. But Yi Shen was indeed dead, there was no doubt about that. His body was simply being protected by the gods. Master Roshi waited a year for news from the gods, but received nothing. He waited with anticipation, but nothing came of it. Gradually, Master Roshi despaired, no longer believing that the gods could bring miracles. After a year, he completely gave up hope. Fortunately, Master Roshi didn't tell Yi Fanfan this vague news a year ago, otherwise Yi Fanfan would have been so disappointed. Master Roshi specifically looked at Yi Fanfan's face. Yi Fanfan's expression was solemn and sorrowful, but there was no great emotional fluctuation on his face. Chapter 642 Wish. But deep down, Yi Fanfan was already emotionally devastated. In the past year, besides learning many skills, he had also learned how to hide his emotions. Master Roshi knew all this. He knew the changes in Yi Fanfan over the years. He knew how hard Yi Fanfan had studied, how obedient and sensible he had been. Everyone said he had grown up, but only Master Roshi understood that Yi Fanfan had lost his pillar of support and was now forced to face the storms of life alone. Yi Fanfan recalled his memories with his father, memories of how happy he was, and now all he could see was his father's tombstone. Yi Fanfan tried desperately to conceal his emotions. He didn't want others to see his sorrow. The calmer Yi Fanfan's face appeared, the more painful his heart became. The more beautiful and happy his past memories were, the more alone he felt now. His father had been absent for a year during his childhood. Yi Fanfan himself felt that he had grown a lot and become much more sensible in that year. Although he usually appeared normal to others, a quiet but polite child, Yi Fanfan knew in his heart how much he missed his father. On the anniversary of Yi Shen's death, Yi Fanfan could finally express his grief without restraint. For the past 30 days, he wasn't afraid of being seen or laughed at. Yi Fanfan knelt down sadly before his father's tombstone, silently bowing his head. During this process, Yi Fanfan knelt before Yi Shen's grave for a long time, silently shedding tears. No one saw the tears sliding down his cheeks. However, all of this was seen silently by Master Roshi, who felt very sorry for the child seeing him so sad. In that year, Yi Fanfan learned how to hide his emotions. He didn't want others to worry about him, and he began to mature and become sensible. Deep down, Yi Fanfan knew that everyone cared about him, which was why he didn't want them to worry about him further. Therefore, he learned to become more independent. Yi Fanfan didn't know how long he knelt before Yi Shen's grave. Even as everyone around him gradually left, Yi Fanfan didn't want to leave. He still had so much to say to his father. Over the past year, Yi Fanfan had many things he wanted to tell his father, but he hadn't had the chance. After Yi Shen's friends left, Master Roshi didn't want to bother Yi Fanfan any longer. He knew that Yi Fanfan couldn't express his true feelings in front of him. So, Master Roshi silently left Yi Shen's grave and waited for Yi Fanfan nearby. Finally, everyone left, leaving Yi Fanfan alone before Yi Shen's tombstone. At this moment, Yi Fanfan could no longer contain his emotions, and he finally cried loudly. Yi Fanfan cried bitterly, no longer needing to suppress his emotions, so his sobs were loud and heart-wrenching, making him look extremely pitiful. Master Roshi, not far from Yi Fanfan, heard his wailing and frowned. He too was deeply saddened. Finally, Yi Fanfan spoke his heart to Yi Shen's tombstone. "Father, I miss you so much. It's been a year, a whole year, and we still haven't received any good news about you." After saying this, Yi Fanfan remained silent for a while before Yi Shen's tombstone. Once his emotions had calmed somewhat, he continued, choking back tears. "Father, although I know you're not here, I still have so much to say to you. You know, I've grown so much this past year. You don't need to worry about me anymore. I'm not as naive as before." Yi Fanfan's tone had matured considerably. During this year, Yi Fanfan's diligent practice wasn't just about improving himself, but about reaching a level where he could save Yi Shen. How could Yi Fanfan possibly give up the chance to save his father? Yi Fanfan dreamed that one day his father would return, see his progress, and sincerely praise him. Just that alone made Yi Fanfan feel incredibly happy. However, Yi Fanfan's spirits plummeted again. He didn't even know how long he knelt before Yi Shen's grave until dusk. Master Roshi, worried about Yi Fanfan's health, came to his side and told him to go home. "Child, we should go back. It's late." Yi Fanfan didn't answer. He broke down, crying loudly, "I don't want to go back. I want to stay here with my father." Master Roshi could only try to comfort and persuade Yi Fanfan repeatedly. However, Yi Fanfan cried incessantly, wanting her father. Master Roshi, unable to bear seeing Yi Fanfan face the prospect of never seeing her father again at such a young age, decided to tell her the last way to save Yi Fanfan. Master Roshi asked Yi Fanfan, "Do you really want your father to come back to life?" Yi Fanfan nodded firmly. "Absolutely. Of course I want my father back by my side, and for our family to live happily ever after." Since Yi Fanfan had said so, Master Roshi had no further reservations. He finally revealed the last way to save Yi Fanfan. "I can tell you how to save your father and bring him back to life, but this method is extremely difficult. If you want to complete this task, you will have to go through many trials. Are you sure you have the perseverance?" Yi Fanfan nodded without hesitation. "Of course you must have perseverance. You don't need to worry about that." Master Roshi was particularly pleased. He seemed to see a shadow of Yi Shen in Yi Fanfan. Only now did Master Roshi realize how remarkably similar Yi Fanfan and Yi Shen were, especially in their personalities. Master Roshi loudly explained the method to Yi Fanfan. Actually, the method sounded simple, but it was incredibly difficult to execute. The method was like this: you've probably heard of the Dragon Balls, right? If you can find all 7 Dragon Balls, you can summon Shenron, make a wish, and Shenron can grant you any wish. Hearing Master Roshi mention the Dragon Balls, Yi Fanfan was curious. He had heard about them in stories his father, Yi Shen, had told him, but his father hadn't explained it in detail. Now, hearing Master Roshi bring it up again, Yi Fanfan wanted to understand the Dragon Balls thoroughly. Yi Fanfan asked Master Roshi with a puzzled look. Chapter 643 Difficulty. My father once told me about the Dragon Balls, but he didn't explain it to me in detail. Could you tell me about the Dragon Balls in great detail? Master Roshi asked Yi Fanfan. Of course I can tell you. So let me tell you now. Actually, the Dragon Balls themselves aren't useful. Only when all 7 are collected can they function. Master Roshi paused for a moment before continuing. The Dragon Balls are scattered all over the world. Some are in very hidden places, while others might be found in bustling cities. It's even possible that some Dragon Balls have been found by other evil forces, such as monsters or villains with ambitions to conquer the world. Yi Fanfan listened intently. After hearing Master Roshi's words, he said to him, "Oh, I see. No wonder you said finding all 7 Dragon Balls is incredibly difficult. But I've heard my father say he's found them several times before. I believe that if my father can do it, I can do it just as well." Yi Fanfan felt that as the son of Master Roshi, he couldn't be inferior. His father was a great role model, and he felt proud to be his son, so he could hold himself to even higher standards. Yi Fanfan suddenly felt incredibly confident. He was certain he could accomplish this. When Master Roshi told Yi Fanfan there were other ways to save his father, Yi Fanfan stopped crying and decided to use those methods to bring his father back to life. So Yi Fanfan made up his mind that he would become stronger and train diligently every day so that he could gather the 7 Dragon Balls and bring his father back to life. Of course, the search for the 7 Dragon Balls wouldn't be a solo mission for Yi Fanfan. Master Roshi and the others would secretly help him. After hearing about this method, Yi Fanfan's mood improved significantly, so Master Roshi took him home. They needed to prepare for the next few days. A few days later, Master Roshi decided that he would take some people to find the 7 Dragon Balls first, while entrusting Yi Fanfan to Piccolo to train him and make him stronger. Master Roshi found Piccolo and asked him to be Yi Fanfan's teacher. Piccolo readily accepted. He had met Yi Fanfan and felt that he was an exceptionally talented child, and as the son of Yi Shen, Yi Fanfan possessed a particularly strong comprehension ability. And so their lives began. Master Roshi led a group on a tireless journey to find the 7 Dragon Balls scattered throughout the world, while Yi Fanfan trained relentlessly every day without fail. As a result, Yi Fanfan's strength increased exceptionally rapidly, progressing almost visibly. This was their life on Earth. As for Yi Shen, his soul, after his death, went to another world. After death, people go to a place called the Underworld. A long road connects the human world and the Underworld, called the Road to the Underworld. After Yi Shen died, his soul arrived at the entrance to the Road to the Underworld. His body was taken back and protected by the gods. If the gods wanted to save Yi Shen, they had to prevent him from going to the Underworld and from drinking the Mengpo soup, the soup of oblivion. Just as Yi Shen was still lingering at the entrance to the Road to the Underworld, the gods arrived in time and accompanied him along the way. The gods came to the Underworld to find its master and discuss something. In fact, the ruler of the Underworld is called the Realm King. The god, carrying Yi Shen's soul, first arrived at the king's location. The god and Yi Shen finally traversed the long Yellow Springs Road, arriving at a place deep within the underworld called the Yellow Springs. Although this place is called the Yellow Springs, it is actually a very long and wide river. There is only one bridge across this river, and at one end of the bridge, an old woman is selling soup, the Mengpo soup. The god must find a way for Yi-Shen to cross this bridge without having to drink the Mengpo soup. If Yi-Shen drinks the Mengpo soup, he will forget everything about his life in the mortal world, which is no small matter. The god devised a plan to shrink Yi-Shen's soul and hide it in his sleeve, so that he could smoothly carry Yi-Shen across the bridge. Because of his divine status, he doesn't need to go through these formalities. He can directly state his identity, saying he's here to see so-and-so. This method was a real shame, so the deity quickly shrunk Yi-Shen's soul and hid it in his sleeve. He went to Mengpo, who already knew the deity's identity and didn't prepare Mengpo soup for him, letting him cross the bridge directly. After successfully crossing the bridge, the deity led Yi-Shen towards the location of Yama, the king of hell. The deity restored Yi-Shen to his original form and then brought him to Yama's place. They wanted to discuss something with Yama, to find the king of hell, the ruler of the underworld. Yama and the deity actually had some connection, and when the deity asked for his help, Yama agreed without hesitation. Yama told the deity how to find the king of hell. They had to walk a path leading to the king of hell's residence, called the Serpent Path. However, to walk this serpent path, the deity could not accompany Yi-Shen. Yi-Shen had to complete it alone. The god was completely at ease, entrusting Yi-Shen with this task alone, trusting in his abilities, even if he was merely a soul. During Yi-Shen's time in the underworld, his life had just ended, and he was deeply worried about Yi Fanfen. Before his death, he remembered Yi Fanfen being very close to him, so he was especially concerned about whether Yi Fanfen was injured. However, Yi-Shen couldn't obtain any news from the human world in the underworld, nor could he know if Yi Fanfen was doing well. Therefore, Yi-Shen could only exert all his strength, praying to survive and be reborn so he could find out if Yi Fanfen was doing well, and he also planned to stay by Yi Fanfen's side as he grew. Meanwhile, in the human world, Master Roshi and his group went out to search for the Dragon Balls, but after a long search, they found none and returned to Master Roshi's island in disappointment. Yi Fanfen's daily training never stopped, and to make Yi Fanfen stronger, Piccolo decided to increase the difficulty of his training. Chapter 644 Obstruction. Piccolo arranged an even more brutal training regimen for Yi Fanfen every day. Piccolo put in a great deal of effort and energy to make Yi Fanfen stronger. Yi Fanfen's progress and achievements brought Piccolo great satisfaction. His progress was rapid, but even with this progress, he was still far from reaching the level required to save Yi-Shen. Meanwhile, Yi-Shen was still in the snake path of the summer realm. To save time, Yi-Shen pressed on relentlessly, continuing his journey through the snake path. The snake path was extremely long, seemingly endless, and Yi-Shen didn't know how long it would take to escape and reach King Kai's location. At the same time, in the human world, Piccolo, in order to better train Yi Fanfen, devised an even stricter training program. Yi Fanfen trained with Piccolo every day without fail. After this training continued for some time, Piccolo wanted to check Yi Fanfen's strength and assigned him an ultimate mission. Piccolo's task was for Yi Fanfen to survive alone in the wild for 6 months. The wilderness Piccolo planned for was an extremely harsh environment, teeming with beasts and other evil forces. Resources were scarce, making survival there incredibly difficult. Piccolo believed that only such harsh conditions could truly test Yi Fanfen. However, when Yi Fanfen learned of this, he was very surprised. He was astonished that his teacher, Piccolo, had assigned him such a difficult task. Yi Fanfen felt a little hesitant and resisted the task. He didn't want to go there, he was very scared and didn't want to go. He wanted Piccolo to change the plan. Piccolo's purpose in setting this task was to test Yi Fanfen's strength and unleash his potential. Yi Fanfen pleaded pitifully with Piccolo, "Teacher, can we change the plan? I don't want to go there." Piccolo firmly shook his head. "No, we can't change the plan. Only in this way can we truly test your strength and see just how much potential you have." Seeing that Piccolo was very determined, Yi Fanfen knew there was no room for negotiation. However, Yi Fanfen still strongly resisted the mission and wanted to try again. He pleaded with Piccolo to change his mind, pleading pitifully, "Teacher, aren't there any other missions? You can give me other missions, it doesn't have to be this one to test my strength." But Piccolo was adamant, and no amount of pleading or acting cute worked. After thinking for a moment, Piccolo decided to persuade Yi Fanfen to accept the mission. He thought of Yi Fanfen and said, Since the teacher has assigned this task, you must complete it. Don't think about asking the teacher to change the task. Have you forgotten your father? Your father is still lying there. Don't you want to bring him back to life? Bick deliberately brought up Yi-Shen, which made Yi Fanfen very sad, completely changing his previous mood. Yi Fanfen's heart was suddenly filled with determination. He thought of Yi-Shen and wanted to bring his father back to life. No matter how difficult or arduous the task, he would definitely complete it. A firm belief suddenly filled Fanfen's heart as he said to Bick, "Old man, don't worry. I won't harbor any more illusions. I will definitely complete the task you gave me perfectly. I will make you believe that I have the ability to bring my father back to life." Seeing Yi Fanfen's determination, Bick felt at peace. He thought of his old friend, Yi-Shen, and was very pleased that she had such a filial, intelligent, and sensible child. Under Bick's guidance, Yi Fanfen's progress was very rapid. Although Piccolo couldn't help Yi-Shen in other ways, he could do his best to teach Yi Fanfen well, which was a way of honoring his old friend. Since Yi Fanfen and Piccolo had already discussed it, the next 6 months would be the time for Yi Fanfen to receive his mission. Piccolo took Yi Fanfen to a very harsh environment and left him there before returning alone. Yi Fanfen was initially a little scared when he was left alone there. It was his first time in such a harsh environment. However, Yi Fanfen's heart was completely focused on his father, Yi-Shen. To bring his father back to life, he would endure any hardship. Yi Fanfen mustered his courage to face this training. Although progress wasn't smooth at first, he gradually mastered the skills of wilderness survival. A month passed quickly, and Yi Fanfen gradually became familiar with survival in the wild. He began to live there with ease, facing attacks from various wild beasts every day. In the process of dodging these attacks, Yi Fanfen honed his skills, significantly improving his speed and other abilities. While Yi Fanfen was undergoing a brutal test in the wild, elsewhere, in the sacred temple, God and Babo were discussing other matters. In the temple, God said to Babo, "How should we utilize this year? Yi Fanfen is still undergoing trials in the underworld, we don't know if he can pass." God had always been worried about Yi Fanfen's life or death. Since bringing Yi Fanfen to the underworld, God had returned to the temple, but even after returning, he hadn't given up on saving Yi Fanfen. He had been researching in the temple, hoping to find another way to save him. However, after reading many books, God couldn't find a way to save Yi Fanfen, so he had to give up. God decided to discuss with Babo how to utilize the next year. Meanwhile, on the other side, Krillin brought news of Yi-Shen's death back to Ox King's castle. For a while after Yi-Shen's death, no one dared to return to Ox King's castle to tell Yi-Shen's wife, Chi-Chi. However, this news eventually had to reach Yi-Shen's wife, so Master Roshi sent Krillin to deliver the message. Krillin returned to Ox King's castle with the news, but the castle guards, not recognizing Krillin, stopped him. "Who are you? What are you doing here? This isn't a place you can just walk into," Krillin said politely to the castle guard. Chapter 645 Shock. "My name is Krillin, and I'm Yi-Shen's friend. Yi-Shen has some news I need to deliver to his wife." The castle guards didn't believe Krillin's words, as they had never seen him before. So, to be cautious, the guards asked again. "We don't know if what you're saying is true. If it is, please show us the evidence to convince us of your identity." Hearing this, Krillin took out something from his person, something Yi-Shen had on him before his death. He showed it to the soldiers. This was a very obvious mark on Yi-Shen's body, and the guards recognized it, believing Krillin's true identity and letting him in. Krillin finally entered the Bull Demon King's castle smoothly. After entering, Krillin asked for directions and found Kiki's place. Krillin arrived at Kiki's room and knocked on the door. Kiki heard someone knocking and, thinking it was someone from inside the castle, immediately opened the door. However, when she opened the door, she saw a strange man she had never seen before standing there. Kiki was a little flustered and asked the man, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Krillin immediately took out the item that belonged to Yi-Shen and showed it to Kiki. And Krillin said, "My name is Krillin, I'm Yi-Shen's friend, and I have some news I must tell you." After saying this, Krillin immediately went into Kiki's room and closed the door behind him, leaving Kiki very confused. Krillin handed Kiki some of Yi-Shen's belongings. Kiki took them and examined them closely, realizing they were Yi-Shen's things. Kiki was very worried and panicked. She frantically asked Krillin, "These are Yi-Shen's things. What happened to him? Why did you bring his things back? Has something happened to him? Tell me quickly." It was clear that Kiki was very worried. Her voice became extremely tense, almost choked with sobs, as she spoke to Krillin. Krillin knew that telling Kiki about Yi-Shen's death would make her very sad, but he still decided to tell her the news. Next, I have some news to tell you. You must try your best to stay calm and don't panic. Promise me, okay? Kiki's mood plummeted. She knew it must be terrible news, so she mustered her strength and calmly told Di Zhao the news. After listening, Krillin finally revealed the news to Kiki. Yi-Shen is dead. He died a year ago. We didn't want to tell you, but time has passed, and we couldn't hide it anymore. When Kiki heard this, it was like a bolt from the blue. She stood there, speechless, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. She was completely stunned. The news of Yi-Shen's death was like a devastating blow to Kiki. She was completely unprepared, and overwhelmed with grief, she fainted. This terrified Krillin. Krillin quickly helped Kiki up and sat her down. After she calmed down for a while, he continued, "Don't worry too much. I've only told you this bad news, but there's other good news. I haven't told you yet that you must stay calm. I'll tell you the good news right away." Hearing Krillin's words, Kiki's emotions finally improved a little. She was extremely saddened by the news of Yi-Shen's death, and she hoped that other good news could bring her some relief. Kiki couldn't wait any longer and urged Krillin, "Tell me quickly." Krillin then said, "Although Yi-Shen is dead, there are other ways to bring him back to life. So don't be too pessimistic. We are doing everything we can to try and bring Yi-Shen back to life." When Kiki heard this, a glimmer of hope finally ignited in her heart. But how great was this hope? She didn't know, so she asked, "What are the chances of Yi-Shen coming back to life?" Kiki's question hit the nail on the head, leaving even Krillin unsure how to answer. He could only cautiously state that there were two methods to bring Yi-Shen back to life, but both were extremely difficult. Kiki understood then. It seemed the hope of Yi-Shen returning to life was slim. A wave of worry washed over her as she recalled the happy days she and Yi-Shen had shared. Now, after so long of his death, she was only just learning of it, and she felt a deep sadness. Kiki had waited at home for her husband and child to return, but instead received news of her husband's death. She had waited so long. The news of Yi-Shen's death was particularly difficult for Kiki to accept. She recalled past events, Yi Fanfan's disappearance, Yi-Shen's search for his son, a search that had lasted so long, and Kiki's patient waiting at home, only to receive news of her husband's death. Kiki's emotions were fluctuating wildly. Krillin, fearing she couldn't handle the stress, reassured her again, "Don't be too sad. The temple's spirits and Master Roshi are trying to bring Yi-Shen back to life. They won't give up as long as there's a glimmer of hope." With Krillin's comfort, Kiki felt a little better. She realized she should trust these powerful figures and believe her husband would return. Meanwhile, Yi Fanfan had been living alone in the wild for 2 months, making rapid progress. His progress was entirely due to his determination to survive in the wild, an extremely difficult challenge. He had to fight against all the factors that threatened his survival, such as wild beasts and extreme weather. His progress under these conditions was astonishing. Yi Fanfan could clearly feel his improvement. Every day, his thoughts revolved around survival, and he worried constantly about finding food. Yi Fanfan fills his stomach with wild fruits or vegetables every day, but if he wants to eat something delicious, he has to hunt wild animals. Chapter 646 Probability. Yi Fanfan developed his exceptional speed through hunting wild animals. He chased after incredibly fast creatures every day, which greatly improved his running speed. Although Piccolo arranged for Yi Fanfan to undergo survival training alone in the wild, he was still somewhat uneasy about leaving him alone, so he would sometimes secretly observe him. Especially when Yi Fanfan encountered difficulties, Piccolo would secretly help him. For example, if the prey Yi Fanfan was chasing escaped, Piccolo would secretly injure it. At first, Yi Fanfan thought these were just coincidences, but as these things happened more frequently, he began to suspect something. Yi Fanfan felt as if someone was constantly observing him and sometimes offering him assistance. Although Yi Fanfan had long suspected someone was secretly helping him, he hadn't found any evidence, especially since he couldn't be sure who was helping him. However, Yi Fanfan was certain of one thing: this person's strength was immense, far surpassing his own, which explained why he hadn't been able to detect their presence. Yi Fanfan had only finished 2 months of wilderness training, and Piccolo had planned for him to complete 6 months of training. With almost 4 months left, Yi Fanfan felt he couldn't hold on any longer. This wilderness training was far more difficult than he had imagined. Chi-Chi was completely unaware of the survival training Yi Fangfen was undergoing at home. She was oblivious to the efforts her son was making to save his father. But if Chi-Chi knew, she would be incredibly gratified. She would feel that her son, whom she had watched grow up, had finally made progress. Even without his parents' care, Yi Fangfen could live well on his own. Meanwhile, the two Saiyans arrived on Earth. When the two Saiyans arrived on Earth, they brought with them something from their planet called a power level tester. This power level tester was a very advanced, high-tech product. The Saiyans brought it to test the fighting power of others and assess their strength. However, for some reason, the power level tester broke down when they brought it to Earth, and they needed someone to repair it. The two Saiyans had heard from somewhere that Bulma was exceptionally talented, particularly in repairing and inventing things. So, they found Bulma and asked her to fix the power level tester. The Saiyans handed the power level tester to Bulma, who found its structure particularly novel. Bulma felt she could learn a lot of new technology from it. After taking the power level tester, Bulma went alone to her laboratory to study it quietly. At first, the two Saiyans were quite worried, fearing that Bulma might break their things or pretend to repair them without actually fixing them. However, their worries were completely unnecessary. Given Bulma's character, if someone asked her to fix something, she would definitely do so. Sure enough, after Bulma studied the device alone for a while, she soon produced a perfectly intact power level testing device and handed it to the two Saiyans. Due to the news of Yushen's death, the whole world became busy. Everyone wanted to do their part to save him. Yushen had done many good deeds before, leaving a good reputation in the world, so after hearing the news of his death, no one wanted such a kind hero to die, and they all wanted to work hard to save him. In another part of the world, Yajirobe's guards received an invitation from Master Korin, who asked them to train at Korin Tower. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Countless people longed to train at Korin Tower, so when Yajirobe received the news, he was extremely pleased and readily accepted. With Korin's invitation, Yajirobe quickly led his soldiers and organized everyone to train at Korin Tower. Meanwhile, Master Roshi arrived at Ox King's castle. Master Roshi was already a familiar face to the people of Ox King's castle, so they didn't stop him. Master Roshi entered the castle easily. He had previously sent Krillin to inform Chi-Chi of Yushen's death, but Master Roshi was still uneasy. He wanted to personally explain the matter to Ox King and Chi-Chi. As a highly respected elder, Ox King invited Master Roshi to the largest hall in the castle for a proper reception. Ox King, unsure of Master Roshi's purpose, asked, "What brings you here, Master?" Master Roshi's heart was heavy. He didn't know how to tell Ox King about Leaf Spirit's death. It seemed Ox King was unaware, as Krillin had only told Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi, fearing it would upset Ox King, hadn't told him. Leaf Spirit was Ox King's highly favored son-in-law, whom he had long treated like his own son. Therefore, Leaf Spirit's death would be incredibly difficult for him to accept. Master Roshi mentally organized his thoughts, trying to tell Ox King in the gentlest and most peaceful way possible, hoping the old man wouldn't be too upset. Master Roshi calmly said to Ox King, "Ox King, something has happened to your son-in-law, Leaf Spirit." Ox King was shocked, thinking he had misheard. He asked in astonishment, "Who's in trouble?" The Bull Demon King refused to accept this fact, thinking he must have misheard. However, Yushen hadn't been home for a long time, and the Bull Demon King had a belated, ominous premonition. Master Roshi knew the Bull Demon King wouldn't believe it so easily. After all, the probability of Yushen being in trouble was extremely low. Master Roshi had no choice but to continue. "You heard right, Yushen really is in trouble." The Bull Demon King was so frightened he slumped into his chair, weakly asking, "What happened to Yushen?" The Bull Demon King had initially assumed Yushen was injured, never considering the possibility of him dying. When Master Roshi told him the answer, the Bull Demon King immediately fainted. Chapter 647 Transformation. Master Roshi struggled internally, debating whether to reveal the truth. But they would find out sooner or later anyway. Ultimately, he decided to tell the truth. Yushen died a year ago. His brother Raditz came to Earth, demanding that Yushen become an enemy of the world. Yushen refused, but Raditz relentlessly pressured him. Left with no choice, Yushen fought back, but Raditz's strength far surpassed Yushen's. Master Roshi paused, then continued, "We all joined forces to finally defeat Raditz. However, in that accident, Yi-Shen perished along with Raditz. The situation was that Raditz tried to drag Yi-Shen down with him. Piccolo's ultimate attack was already charged. When Piccolo's attack struck Raditz, Raditz lunged at Yi-Shen, inflicting a fatal wound. Master Roshi finished recounting this story with great difficulty. Afterward, he felt a great weight lifted from his shoulders. After hearing the explanation, the Bull Demon King nearly fainted. He sat shakily, as if he would pass out at the slightest exertion. Chi-Chi supported him, worried that he wouldn't be able to handle his age. Now that they understood Yi-Shen's situation, why hadn't Yi Fanfan returned home for so long? Had something happened to him too? Thinking of this, Chi-Chi felt a tightness in her chest. Very worried that Yi Fanfan had met with misfortune like Shen, Chi-Chi asked Master Roshi. Master Roshi, where is my son, Yi Fanfan? How is he? Just as Master Roshi was about to answer Chi-Kai's question, Ox King weakly asked as well. Yes, how is my precious grandson? Could something have happened to him too? Good heavens, is this going to torment this old man to death? Ox King's sorrow was written all over his face. Master Roshi knew Ox King was worried, so to reassure him, he quickly said, Fanfan is fine, Fanfan is doing well. I found him a teacher, and he's learning skills from him. Don't worry, I'll definitely give you a lively and healthy Fanfan back. Hearing this, Ox King and Chi-Chi were much relieved. They knew Yi Fanfan was safe. Chi-Chi was curious about what skills Yi Fanfan was learning and what he was going to do with them. So she asked, Master Roshi, could you please tell me what Yi Fanfan is learning? What is he going to do with it? Master Roshi answered Chi-Kai's question. Yi Fanfan wanted to revive his father. I knew it was out of filial piety, so I told him he could summon Shinran by collecting all 7 Dragon Balls, and then he could wish for his father to come back to life. Master Roshi felt his throat was getting dry, so he took a sip of water and continued. But Yi Fanfan's current strength is far from enough to accomplish this, so I told him he could increase his strength to revive his father. Chi-Chi was a little worried when she heard this. After all, Yi Fanfan was still young, and she was worried that he wouldn't be able to complete such a task and might even get hurt. Chi-Chi voiced her concerns. Can Yi Fanfan do it? Can he complete such a difficult task at such a young age? Master Roshi asked Chi-Chi. As a mother, how can you not believe in your child's abilities? Think about Yi Fanfan. He really wants to learn those things, that's his motivation. If he continues to learn, he might make amazing progress. Chi-Chi hadn't thought that far ahead, she was just worried about whether Yi Fanfan could handle it. Master Roshi, seeing that Chi-Chi had taken his words to heart, continued. It's a good thing to give Yi-chan something to do. It prevents him from constantly grieving his father's death. Yi-chan is currently working very hard to learn skills from Piccolo, and his progress is remarkable. So, if he continues like this, even if he can't collect all 7 Dragon Balls, his progress will be something we can all admire. According to Master Roshi, Yi-chan learning skills wasn't a bad thing at all. It seemed to have no downsides, only visible advantages. Chi-Chi listened to Master Roshi's words. She wasn't worried about Yi-chan anymore, but she still felt particularly sad about Yi-chan's situation. Chi-Chi wanted to know how likely it was that Yi-chan could be brought back to life, so she asked Master Roshi. Master Roshi, whether Yi-chan can be brought back to life is the only thing I'm worried about right now, Master Roshi explained to Chi-Chi. I think the chances of Yi-chan coming back to life are very high, but I can't guarantee it. After all, it's not a 100% certainty. I can only tell you that the chances of Yi-chan coming back to life are extremely high. You, Zhao Hao, should have hope, but you shouldn't have overly high expectations. Chi-Chi understood Master Roshi's meaning, and she finally felt a little more at ease. Since Master Roshi said so, it seemed that the hope of Yi-chan coming back to life was extremely high, so she had nothing to worry about. However, Chi-Chi felt very guilty. She couldn't help at all. After Yi-chan died, she only learned of the news a year later. Chi-Chi couldn't do anything for Yi-chan. Even Yi Fanfan could contribute to Yi-chan's chances of coming back to life, while she could only worry helplessly. But Chi-Kai's worries were completely unnecessary. Even if she didn't contribute, many people were working hard for Yi-chan's chances of coming back to life. Master Roshi finally explained the situation regarding Yi-chan and Yi Fanfan to Ox King and Chi-Chi. Having finished dealing with this matter, Master Roshi was ready to leave Ox King's castle. He had other matters to attend to, so Ox King and Chi-Chi couldn't insist he stay. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yifanfen was undergoing survival training in the wild. It happened to be a full moon night, and Yifanfen would undergo a transformation. It was already evening, and Yifanfen had no idea what awaited him after nightfall. During the day, Yifanfen had caught a pheasant. Today he could finally have something good to eat. After thoroughly cleaning the pheasant's feathers, he went to the river to clean its internal organs. Yifanfen could now make a fire in the wild. He lit the fire by himself, then skewered the pheasant with branches and roasted it beside the fire. Tonight, we can finally have some delicious pheasant. Yifanfen smelled the aroma of the roasting chicken, and the tempting smell made her mouth water. Night slowly fell, and the moon gradually appeared behind the clouds. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 648 Piccolo. The full moon hung high in the sky, its silvery light bathing the ground and making the entire night exceptionally bright. Yifanfen's roasted pheasant was finally ready, and just as he was about to enjoy it, he felt unwell. Gradually, his discomfort worsened. He didn't know why, but his whole body ached, until the pain became unbearable, and he collapsed onto a pile of grass, rolling around in agony. Yifanfen felt every joint in his body changing. He felt his bones slowly growing larger. With these changes, his mind became increasingly clouded. Just as his mind completely lost control, Yifanfen's body transformed into a giant ape man. This was the first time such a thing had happened to Yifanfen on a full moon night. He had never encountered anything like it before. He couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was because Yifanfen's strength had reached a certain level, thus activating his body's inherent attributes. After Yifanfen's body transformed into a giant ape man, his mind vanished along with it. Bewitched, Yifanfen began to wreak havoc on everything around him. Piccolo, who had been secretly observing Yifanfen, was shocked by the power Yifanfen possessed in his ape-man form. Piccolo had never known that Yifanfen's body held such a secret. Yifanfen's destructive power was immense, and Piccolo couldn't let him continue like this. He wanted to stop Yifanfen's actions. However, Yifanfen's power was now exceptionally strong, and Piccolo's efforts alone were unlikely to stop him. Piccolo needed to find a helper to stop Yifanfen's destructive behavior. Piccolo immediately thought of Piccolo. He knew Piccolo lived nearby, so all he needed to do was find Piccolo and ask for his help. Together, they could stop Yifanfen's actions. Piccolo had to act immediately. He needed to find Piccolo right away, otherwise, given Yifanfen's speed, it wouldn't be long before he caused significant damage to a wide area. Yifanfen, now transformed into an ape man, was like a madman, relentlessly destroying obstacles around him. This was Yifanfen's first time transforming into a giant ape man. His mind wasn't fully developed, and his senses weren't yet fully mature. As an ape man, Yifanfen's eyesight wasn't perfect. He could only see things within a few meters. Moreover, Yifanfen was extremely hot-tempered. Anything that blocked his way would be destroyed. Piccolo wanted to stop Yifanfen as quickly as possible. Piccolo finally found Piccolo and eagerly wanted Piccolo to come with him. But Piccolo was puzzled. He had never seen Piccolo in such a hurry before. Piccolo asked curiously, "Piccolo, what's wrong? What happened? You grabbed me and ran. Tell me what happened." Piccolo was so anxious he forgot to tell Piccolo what had happened. Piccolo reminded him that he should tell him about Yifanfen. Piccolo gasped, "Oh, look how anxious I am. I forgot to tell you. Yifanfen is in trouble. He turned into a giant ape man on the night of the full moon and is destroying everything around him." Piccolo was shocked. He said urgently to Piccolo, "Yifanfen is in trouble. Aren't you going to help him? Aren't you going to stop him? What are you doing here? Aren't you worried?" Piccolo became agitated and said quickly, "How can I not be worried? I want to stop him too, but I can't do it on my own. I had to ask you for help." "Okay," Piccolo understood. Since Piccolo had invited him to help, he would definitely assist Piccolo properly. Now that they had already discussed it, Piccolo quickly brought Piccolo to Yifanfen's side. When Piccolo arrived, he saw that Yifanfen had transformed into a giant ape man, with a hideous face, and his body had grown many times larger. Now was the moment when Yifanfen's power was unleashed. If Piccolo and Piccolo wanted to stop him, one of them would have to restrain Yifanfen while the other destroyed the moon. Destroying the moon was impossible. They could only try to block out its light, as the full moon was the main cause of Yifanfan's transformation. Piccolo and Piccolo briefly discussed it. Piccolo decided that he would personally restrain Yifanfan and distract him, while Piccolo, taking advantage of Yifanfan's inattention, would block out the moon. Piccolo easily attracted Yifanfan's attention, drawing him aside, giving Piccolo the time and opportunity to cover the moon. However, Piccolo realized the moon was enormous, and to cover it, he needed something exceptionally large. Since there was nothing suitable in the wild, Piccolo decided to destroy the moon himself. Piccolo ascended into the air, flying higher and higher until he was close enough to reach the moon. Once he was at the perfect distance, Piccolo began to prepare his ultimate attack, using a mysterious black power to surround the moon, rendering it unable to emit light. The moon was effectively destroyed by Piccolo, and moonlight ceased to exist on Earth. Without the interference of moonlight, Yifanfan instantly transformed from his giant ape-man form back into normal human. This operation exhausted both Piccolo and Piccolo. Piccolo not only had to contend with the now incredibly powerful Yifanfan, but also had to keep an eye on whether Piccolo's operation was successful. Piccolo had to multitask, so he struggled a lot when dealing with Yifanfan. Yifanfan finally returned to normal, and Piccolo breathed a sigh of relief. They were exhausted that night. Although Yifanfan had returned to normal, he fell into a coma and wouldn't wake up for a while. Piccolo were still a little worried about Yifanfan, but when they saw the Gibberellich behind him, they knew this was the reason for his transformation. To prevent this from happening again, Piccolo discussed it and decided to temporarily remove Yifanfan's tail. Chapter 649 Viper. Piccolo worked hard all night to finally bring Yifanfan back to normal. They sat down to rest and chatted. First, Piccolo spoke. Yifanfan is such a pitiful child. He lost his father, and now he has to rely on himself. It's heartbreaking to see him become so strong. Although I'm his teacher, and this is the plan I devised for him, I still feel very reluctant to let him go, Piccolo echoed. Yes, Yifanfan is really pitiful. If his father were here, he wouldn't have to suffer so much. Piccolo were talking about Yifanfan, but the conversation suddenly drifted to Yishen's nickname. They thought of their friend who had passed away a year ago, and their hearts ached again. Piccolo both thought of Yishen, and they spoke with emotion once more. If Yishen were still here, Yifanfan would definitely be a happy child like before, living a simple yet blissful life. He wouldn't have to suffer so much, nor would he have to be so tired. Although Piccolo have given Yifanfan a lot of love and care, it's far from enough. Because of his father's absence, Yifanfan's life is always lacking something compared to other children. A father's love is irreplaceable by anyone else. After all, only one person can replace a father's position. While Yifanfan was still unconscious, Piccolo discussed leaving as soon as possible, otherwise, it would be difficult to explain their presence when Yifanfan woke up. After Piccolo left, Yifanfan finally woke up, though he didn't know how much time had passed. Yifanfan had no idea what had happened before, especially the events of the full moon night. When he woke up, he didn't even know why he was lying on the wasteland. Yifanfan couldn't remember transforming on the night of the full moon, so his first reaction upon waking was curiosity about why he was in this place. What intrigued Yifanfan was why he was covered in grime and appeared to have been in a fight. Yifanfan couldn't figure it out. It felt like he'd blacked out from drinking, waking up with no memory of anything. But the only thing Yifanfan could be sure of was that he hadn't been drinking. Still a little dizzy from just waking up, Yifanfan rubbed his temples, trying to recall what had happened, but he couldn't remember anything. So, he gave up. Seeing himself covered in grime and mud, Yifanfan felt incredibly dirty and decided to go to the river to find clean water to wash himself off. He came across a river with crocodiles, though he didn't know they were well hidden. Finally finding clean water, Yifanfan squatted down and scooped up water with his hands to wash his face. Just as Yifanfan finished washing his face and was about to leave, a crocodile stealthily swam over. Right in front of him, the crocodile opened its jaws wide and suddenly leaped out of the water, grabbing Yifanfan's clothes and pulling him into the river. Startled by this sudden event, Yifanfan screamed loudly. His first instinct was that a crocodile was attacking him, so he quickly moved away from the crocodile as soon as he hit the water. Yifanfan had learned to swim before, and he swam away quickly. However, crocodiles are the masters of the water, and Yifanfan would have to use his skills to face one alone. This was a test for Yifanfen, as he had undergone extensive survival training in the wild. This was a true test of the effectiveness of his training. Now, Yifanfen was completely on his own. Although he was terrified, he had no choice but to face the situation alone. Yifanfen felt a little helpless, but in that dangerous moment, he immediately displayed his skills and drove the crocodile away in the water. After driving the crocodile away, Yifanfen was overjoyed. He was very happy that his strength had improved again, and he could easily deal with crocodiles in the water. However, Yifanfen didn't know that even after driving away the crocodile, many difficulties awaited him. On Yifanfen's path to becoming stronger, he still had to experience many things, many of which filled him with fear. But even so, Yifanfen still had to face these challenges. After the fish attack, Yifanfen dared not go to the riverbank. Although he could easily deal with crocodiles, the sudden appearance of one was still a bit frightening. Yifanfen was particularly worried about encountering another wild animal attack, so he made thorough preparations, constantly on guard against any potential dangers. After leaving the riverbank, Yifanfen entered a forest. His survival training wasn't over yet, and it was almost noon. His stomach was rumbling, and he needed to find something to eat. Yifanfen decided to find some wild fruit first. Catching wild animals could wait until he had the strength. Yifanfen climbed a tree to pick fruit, but just as he was about to reach it, a venomous snake suddenly appeared and almost bit his hand. Luckily, Yifanfen was quick-witted and reacted fast, pulling his hand back in time to avoid being bitten. Yifanfen was startled. The suddenly appearing snake seemed unwilling to give up, continuing to approach him. It seemed Yifanfen had trespassed on someone else's territory, and the snake was acting in self-defense. The fruit on the tree was carefully selected food by the venomous snake, and Yifanfen's intrusion and attempt to pick the fruit naturally angered the snake. Yifanfen felt that this venomous snake looked dangerous, so he quickly left the tree, abandoning his plan to pick the wild fruit. Just as Yifanfen climbed down the tree, he accidentally stepped on a pile of things on the ground. When he realized it, he found he had crushed a bunch of eggs. Chapter 650 Roasted. Yifanfen knew he was in trouble again. He recognized a pile of eggs as snake eggs laid by a snake in a tree. Frustrated, he smacked his head. He really didn't know he had an eye. This was bad. He had thoroughly angered the venomous snake in the tree. The snake's eyes turned red instantly. Seeing Yifanfen, it coiled its body and lunged forward, almost biting him. Yifanfen frantically ran away. A while later, it wasn't just one snake chasing him, but many, including several pythons. Yifanfen was terrified. He ran for his life, not even knowing how fast he was going. He thought, if only I can get out of this forest, so he ran towards the edge of the forest, constantly increasing his speed, while the pythons relentlessly pursued him. As Yifanfen ran, he suddenly remembered how his father used the somersault cloud to fly, minimizing contact with the ground. Suddenly, Yifanfen wanted to shout, to call for his father, Yi-Shen, for help. But he remembered Yi-Shen had passed away years ago. He could only rely on himself now. Thinking of this, Yifanfen felt a pang of sadness. He knew he had to depend on himself now, so he increased his speed, his pace making it seem as if he were about to take flight. Yifanfen reached his maximum speed, almost ready to fly, and then, in a moment of inspiration, plucked a giant banana leaf from beside him. He used his magical powers on the banana leaf, and it began to fly. Now that the banana leaf could fly, Yifanfen sat on it. Sitting on the banana leaf, Yifanfen flew out of the forest. He reached the edge of the forest, looking out at the endless grasslands beyond. Above the grassland, Yifanfen sat on a banana leaf and saw several small hills below. He decided to stop and rest. So he landed and went to one of the hills. Yifanfen noticed that the hill was almost entirely bare, with no tall trees. On a rather bare tree, he discovered a huge bird's nest. Yifanfen found that the nest was many times larger than any he had ever seen before. He didn't know what kind of bird it was. His stomach was growling. He hadn't found any wild fruit in the forest, and the strenuous activity had left him incredibly hungry. He wanted to find food as soon as possible. Yifanfen looked around but didn't see any birds nearby. He decided to climb the tree and steal the eggs from the nest. After thinking this for a moment, Yifanfen quickly climbed the bare tree and, from there, saw what was inside the nest. Yifanfen noticed the nest was full of large eggs, so he quickly took a few and put them in his pocket. He thought a few eggs would be enough. Just as he was about to climb down the tree, an eagle returned and spotted him. Enraged to see someone stealing his eggs, the eagle swooped down to attack Yifanfen. Its sharp beak struck Yifanfen's bottom, causing him pain. He quickly released a branch and fell to the ground. The fall was painful. As he stood up, he clutched his bottom twice. It really hurt. He then checked his pocket to make sure the eggs weren't broken. Thankfully, they weren't, otherwise the eagle would have attacked even more fiercely. Yifanfen obediently took the bird egg out of his pocket and put it back in the nest in the tree before running away. However, the eagle relentlessly followed him, wanting to teach him a lesson. The eagle chased Yifanfen for a long distance before finally giving up. Yifanfen's adventure had been incredibly thrilling. Turning around, Yifanfen realized the eagle had finally stopped chasing him. He breathed a sigh of relief and immediately lay down on the grass, wanting to rest. He was truly exhausted from the day. Yifanfen hadn't eaten anything all day, his stomach was rumbling. Coupled with being chased by wild animals twice and the strenuous activity, his stomach was even bloated. He was practically starving. Yifanfen, clutching his rumbling stomach, continued walking, his strength waning. He finally reached a lake on a grassland. Seeing the lake, a glimmer of hope ignited in him. He thought that even if he couldn't catch the trees, he could surely catch the water. Yifanfen stripped off his clothes, leaving only his underwear, and jumped into the lake, hoping to catch fish. Several plump fish swam past his feet, and he nearly caught them several times, but the fish seemed cunning, constantly teasing him. Yifanfen splashed around in the lake for a long time without catching a single fish. Finally, he grabbed a tool and jumped back in. With lightning speed, he jabbed a rather fat fish. Yifanfen was overjoyed. He had finally caught something decent to eat. He quickly threw the fish back onto the shore. After throwing the fish onto the lake shore, Yifanfen was still worried. Afraid it would jump back into the lake, he quickly climbed ashore, put on his clothes, and prepared the fish by the lake. However, on the grassland, Yifanfen couldn't find any branches to start a fire. He carefully returned to the edge of the forest. After gathering many dry branches and leaves, he built a fire to roast the fish. After a while, the fire was finally lit, and he quickly placed a fish beside it to roast. Now everything was ready, he just waited for the fish to cook. Yifanfen lay down on the grass, leisurely closed his eyes, and wanted to rest for a while. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.